This audiobook is a non-profit fan adaptation of the web novel Greek mythology, The Spiritual Dominator. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com.
Summary.
Khaos has just been opened up, and the desolate void welcomes the souls of other worlds. As the first soul in the world of Khaos, Ryan automatically became the god of spirituality. However, the power of God comes from divine power, and spiritual existence is insignificant, so the new Ryan is weak. There was no other way. In order not to be knocked to the ground by the torrent of fate, Ryan had no choice but to rely on himself. Open up the interface and give birth to a unique spiritual life. Create a sequence and spread the long steps to ascend to the gods. Weave a magic web to cover the sky, ocean, and earth. When the dusk bell rings, I hold the throne high and declare to all living beings from the top of the spiritual world. The world has two sides, the physical and the spiritual. The material belongs to the gods, and the spiritual belongs to me. This is the truth of all things. Greek mythology, the spiritual dominator. Chapter 1: The God of Spirituality. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void. Darkness was over the deep. The Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning. This was the first day. Genesis.
Yeah.
Another year. On the empty and desolate land, Ryan woke up from his deep sleep. As far as the eye can see, the familiar yet unfamiliar land remains the same as before, as if it has never changed. It has been many years since he came to this world, but Ryan is still not used to this emptiness and desolation. Unlike the divine creation recorded in the Bible, Khaos evolved from chaos, which he saw with his own eyes. Therefore, instead of becoming complete in just 7 days, it still appears desolate and dilapidated. But today was different, because as Ryan was awakened, he could clearly feel that a new god was about to be born. The 12 Titans have finally waited for this day. Feeling the rhythm of the law and the waves of the origin sea, Ryan raised his eyes and looked up. In the distant sky, brilliant ribbons of color danced in the sky, and the vibrations of the laws became more and more violent. That was a sign of the birth of a new god. This is not the first time. In the nascent world of Khaos, Ryan witnessed the birth of many gods one after another. The last time was 700 years ago. Of course, in the early days of the world, Nien was an inappropriate name. Because there are no sun and moon at this time, there are no changes in the 4 seasons, and naturally there is no concept of year. But Ryan liked to call it that, so Khaos had its second word to describe time, year. It is worth mentioning that the first word, day, was also coined by Ryan after witnessing the birth of the trinity of ancient gods Nyx, the Lord of Night. Therefore, he gained the power of timing. But unfortunately, power is not authority. This is just the prototype of the priesthood, so Ryan is still only the spiritual god. Cronus and Rhea, the true masters of time, are about to be born. With a long sigh, Ryan leaned against the dug cave and looked at the changing scenery between heaven and earth. Even with the perception of the gods, he could not feel the source of everything across the boundless land. But Ryan didn't need to see it, because the sky and the earth fit together. No matter where in the world, on the hills or under the sea, the breath of desire is rising and new life is being nurtured. For thousands of years, in Ryan's observation, there are many differences between the newly born Khaos and the myths of later generations, but the birth of the gods seems to be basically the same. The source of all things originates from the dark void, and the vast earth is born together with Mother Earth. When the sky did not exist, the Lady of Night occupied the endless void, and the chaotic Tartarus appeared under everything in his sleep. As the first self-aware being in the world, Ryan witnessed the birth of the original god with his own eyes, and Khaos ushered in the first batch of creatures. Later, under the inspiration of the Earth Mother, the sky, the sea and the mountains appeared one after another, and Uranus, Pontos, and Urea were born. Khaos moved closer and closer to the complete world. Now, 1,300 years after Ryan began to use years to measure time, Uranus, the eldest son of the Earth Mother Gaia and the Heavenly Father, married his conceived person, and the 12 Titans are about to come to this world. Of course, there was no Titan at this time. They are great innate gods, supreme beings conceived by Heavenly Father and Earthly Mother, and ancient gods who possess powerful power at birth. The laws of the world will be perfected with their birth, and the position of God King will also be crowned on the head of the Lord of the Sky, due to the manifestation of paternal authority. Eros, who seems to have died instantly at birth, will be the first generation of God Kings. But this has nothing to do with me. Shaking his head, under Ryan's divine eyes, the laws of the world were jumping and becoming complete. The lonely Khaos is becoming more colorful and prosperous due to the birth of new gods. But the excitement was theirs, and Ryan had nothing. As a weak time traveler and a spiritual god, his power is not as powerful as a hair of the Lord of the Sky. Thousands of years ago, when he came here at the birth of heaven and earth, Ryan was very confused. Whether other time travelers reincarnate, seize bodies, borrow corpses to resurrect souls, fuse souls, etc., at least they still have a body for them. But when Ryan arrived, Khaos had just been opened up, and the original god was still being conceived, and he didn't even have anyone to seize his body from. Fortunately, as the first existence in this world, Ryan's original soul turned into spiritual origin and weak space-time divinity. Ryan used this to shape the body of the god and avoid the end of the soul. Later, the power of time series also relied on this. It is not just someone who creates a new concept and can gain power. The existence of the divinity of time and space allowed Ryan to use a trick. He reluctantly made the world recognize the existence of years and days and obtained the weakest sequence of time. But power is not authority. The latter is the essence of the priesthood, and the former is just an extension of the realm. If you want to sublimate power into authority and obtain the identity of the god of time, you still have to go back to those two paths. Use a direct way to carve concepts into the world with great power. Or let the law act on behalf of him. Enough gods recognize his identity as creator, and then gradually obtain this priesthood over a long period of time. It's a pity that Ryan can't do both. He has neither the power to shake the world nor the ability to be recognized by the gods. So Ryan had to wait quietly for the right time. For example, when this god king is about to be born. Buzz. The buzzing sound suddenly sounded, with no source, and it seemed that the source was everywhere. The sound is clear but not harsh. It is the restlessness of the law. The next moment, endless light and infinite water were generated in the void. In the newborn world of Khaos, the earth was in the center, and the ocean surrounded the land from all sides. But at this moment, where the sea cannot reach, on the earth and in the sky, new water appears out of thin air and gradually grows into a stream. Oceanus, the eldest brother of the 12 Titans, lord of the ocean and river around the world, was finally born in the world of Khaos. At this time, Ryan could clearly feel that the authority that originally belonged to the original sea god Pontos was divided into two, and one of them was heading straight towards the ocean currents surrounding the world. That was the power of the world cutting into him. The overall level of oceans and water rose, but Pontos was severely weakened. He still held the priesthood of the sea, offshore and salt water, but the symbols of fresh water and ocean currents were replaced by new gods. In Ryan's perception, the originally powerful aura in the ocean weakened instantly. If I were to be more specific, it probably fell from strong divine power to medium divine power. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 2, God's Birthday. There are strong and weak gods in Khaos. According to the laws of the world, the gods in this world are roughly divided into 4 levels. Like Ryan, he is a typical weak divine power. As for the original sea god Pontos, he was born with moderate divine power and later grew into a powerful being. As for the original gods, before they were born with consciousness, they were greater than powerful gods, but after they were born with consciousness, they were only about half a block higher. Buzz. The buzz of the law sounded again, and when Ryan looked at the ocean, the vision of the world of Khaos continued. The water vapor between heaven and earth condensed again, and Pontos' newly stable priesthood trembled. Born gods cannot be deprived of their priesthood, except in the world that gave birth to them. Except for the spirituality, condensed by Ryan's own soul, the world itself can take back all power. Of course, except when giving birth to new gods, the unconscious world will not interfere much with the gods. Fortunately, I came early. As long as the 5 primitive gods have given birth to consciousness, it is estimated that my spiritual priesthood will also become the possession of the world. Shaking his head, Ryan continued to watch the blockbuster movie of the century. The condensation of water vapor continued, and in addition to Pontos, the newly born Oceanus also showed the same signs. The 2 gods who split the ocean equally lost part of their authority at a certain moment, which was the part of their priesthood related to pure water. The laws of the world are shaking, and all the gods in the world understand the meaning contained therein. Tesses, the god of raw water, another Titan ancient god, was born. 2 water-related gods were born in succession, and the power of the world began to shift from the ocean to the sky. Ryan could feel that the next Titan would be born there. Pontos, he is almost unable to maintain the power of medium divine power. But even so, he can still hit me 5 with one hand. With a helpless smile, Ryan turned his gaze to the sky. The combat power of gods is not only related to the level of divine power, but also related to authority. Like the god of fire and the god of spring, even if their powers are similar, their combat power is vastly different. But there is no doubt that even if Pontos' authority is not the best at fighting, it is definitely much stronger than spirituality. After all, pure spirituality is like physical strength. It looks very useful, but in fact it is useless. Buzz. After waiting for a while, it seemed to have calmed down, and the laws of the world became active again. This time, 2 ancient gods and a new celestial body were directly born in the world of Khaos. After thousands of years, Ryan saw the sun in the sky again. Looking at the sky, the new celestial body is emitting light and heat, and the origin of the entire world has risen in an instant. Hyperion, the first sun. Thea, mother of light, god of sight. When the origin of the world rose, although Ryan was only an insignificant spiritual god, his power also increased. The special spiritual priesthood is still beneficial. He will not take the blame when the world declines, but he can reap the dividends when the world becomes stronger. According to Ryan's own classification, this wave probably went from divine power level 2 to divine power level 3. If he can be promoted 3 more times, then he can get rid of the status of weak divine power and be promoted to weak divine power with divine power level 6. This subdivision is not innate in the world of Khaos, it is purely a level created by Ryan, but this division helps him measure the level of the god's power. Just like now, as the world as a whole rises, Pontos, who was originally teetering on the 11th level of divine power, finally recovered and stabilized his strength. Buzz. The buzzing started again. The laws of the world do not stagnate according to the will of a god, and the source sea is rolling again. Soon, 3 consecutive vibrations of the law announced to the world the birth of 3 new gods. In an instant, a storm blew up on the earth, and many lightless celestial bodies appeared in the sky. This was a demonstration of the authority of the 2 gods. The third one followed the path of her sister. She split part of the light from her other newborn sister, Thea, and absorbed some power from the sun. Khaos, god of the celestial bodies. Khaos, the god of weather. Phoebe, the god of light. The emergence of the 3 new gods caused the world's source power to rise again, but the magnitude was not as obvious as the emergence of the sun. However, although his divine power did not increase, Ryan still felt that a new power was gestating in his body. This power has been present since the first Titan came into the world. With each additional person, it becomes more solid. Only now has it finally become perceptible. Very good. Seeing that his expectation came true, even though this was the change he had been waiting for a long time, Ryan couldn't help but smile. Fortunately, this is not the reign of the third-generation god King Zeus. In this ignorant age, he still has a lot to do. At least you have to work hard and don't end up being a weakling in the future. When the time comes, it will be a small thing to be looked down upon by others, but it will be a big deal to be favored by Zeus. I couldn't help but shudder. Thinking of the 3 generations of gods who were not divided into men or women, and regardless of race, Ryan's idea of becoming stronger was even more determined. Only on this point, Auranas is still very trustworthy. He was interested in no one but Gaia, and his 12 children inherited his fine tradition. He was obviously watching a blockbuster, but he suddenly recalled the past. Ryan concentrated his attention and instantly noticed the source of the influence. 2 new gods were born one after another, but their power was biased towards the spiritual realm, so the active laws also affected Ryan's spirit. Mnemosyne was the original goddess of memory, language, and innate writing, but until her name was spread to the world along the rules, the priesthood of memory still did not appear. Iapetus, the god of souls and speech. Also, for some unknown reason, part of his soul seemed to disappear without a trace. In response to this, Ryan said that I do not take the blame, even though it was indeed me. Fortunately, I wasn't exposed before, otherwise Iapetus would have been brought to our door by Mnemosyne. Heaving a sigh of relief, Ryan couldn't help but feel extremely grateful for his previous behavior. Soul and spirituality are 2 sides of the same coin and have already become a part of him, while memory is the subordinate of the soul. Without his permission, no one can obtain the priesthood of memory. If it were a god born in the world of Khaos, he would have been torn apart from power just like Pontos, or he would have become a god of one of the 2 gods. But his spiritual priesthood stems from his own creation. He is the original god of spirituality and the first soul to appear in this world, so the world can't do anything to him, unless it kills him directly. But killing the original god is equivalent to killing the authority he represents, and spirituality will disappear in the world. From then on, no soul will be born in the world of Khaos. So Khaos, who only had instinct, ignored the divine rights of soul and memory and directly gave birth to 2 new gods. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 3, Summoned by the God King. This is really a big trouble. Although he did the right thing, Ryan was somewhat scared. Fortunately for Iapetus, the other party didn't even know that he still had the priesthood of the soul, but Mnemosyne was different. The priesthood of memory had been born, but it could not be crowned on her body. Instead, it was scattered in the world, waiting for him, the spiritual source, to absorb it. If she discovers Ryan's identity in the future, I'm afraid she won't be friendly with him. But having said that, Ryan has no regrets. Just kidding, his spiritual authority is already so weak. If most of it is taken away by others, he might become a joke among the gods and become the first being unable to maintain his identity as a god. As for being a god, it is naturally even more impossible. It's difficult to take off the dog's life once it's on the leash. Ryan Shen hasn't enjoyed it yet and doesn't plan to experience dog life in advance. But even though it provokes a potential enemy, it's not all bad. Feeling the power of memory that had been born but scattered between heaven and earth, Ryan smiled slightly. The memory authority is not strong, but it is enough to further his spiritual authority. After all, the strength of the priesthood determines the upper limit of divine power. No matter how much the god of spring water improves his divine power, he will never be able to become a medium divine power by relying on spring water. At this time, one must either obtain more and stronger priesthoods, or expand the original priesthoods. Using spiritual to absorb memory, a lower-level priesthood, is a way to expand capacity. It will add depth and breadth to the original priesthood, making related concepts stronger. Of course, this kind of absorption cannot be successful casually. One must be able to tolerate the other. Spirituality is very suitable in this regard, and it can be connected with many priesthoods. Shaking his head, Ryan stopped thinking about it. Although the memory priesthood currently has no owner, it still takes a long time for him to absorb it. After all, for the world, the origin of spirituality is not under control. Once memory is absorbed by spirituality, it means that Khaos has lost control of memory. Therefore, even if the world has no will, it will still instinctively stop him, increasing the time he needs to spend 10 times. Buzz. There was another buzz. It seemed that Ryan had been thinking for a long time, but in fact, only a short while had passed. After the birth of the two gods, the birth of new gods continued. The continuous birth of so many powerful gods in one day could only have appeared at the beginning of the creation of this world. Following the vibration of the law, the two gods who were born one after another announced their existence to the world. One breath is fair and rigorous, like an eternal law. The other symbolizes the unchangeableness of the past, seemingly around you, but untouchable. Themis, god of justice and law. Rhea, the god of the passage of time. The weak time sequence, power jumped a bit with the birth of the two gods, but in the end there was no reaction. Power is only the prototype of authority and is not yet qualified to be divided. Slightly relieved, Ryan felt the rhythm of the law gradually subside, as if the gods born this time were all. But he knew that the most critical thing had not yet appeared. Complete time and space will not have a master. This is not allowed by the world. But there is a being who will take a part from both of them and become a god destined to rule the world. He is the youngest son of Uranus and will become the eldest son in the future. Under his rule, the first humans will be born on Earth. When they passed away, a second generation of humans was born because of him. If you don't take into account his oppression of his children, Cronus is actually a qualified ruler. He neither treated his wife like the heavenly father treated the earthly mother, nor did he wantonly display his authority in the mortal world. It's just that his divine karma is not that good. Zeus's brothers fought alongside him, but Cronus's were against him. Zheng. The chain of laws was silent for a while, and then began to roar more intensely. The time and space of the entire world began to become unstable, but it seemed to be building a new structure. Maybe it was a moment, maybe it took a long time. Under the disorderly fluctuations of time and space, Ryan was unable to determine how much time had passed. But at a certain moment, time and space suddenly found the rules that suited them again, and all changes came to an abrupt end. Cronus, Lord of Time and Space. The name of the new god resounded throughout the world, spreading to every corner of Khaos under the action of the string of space. This long-lasting birth of the god finally came to an end. The sky becomes higher, the sea becomes deeper, and the world becomes more complete. The originally endless land also expanded rapidly. Soon Lane could no longer gauge the size of the land. The 12 newly born gods are not the source of change, they are just the introduction, and the accumulated power of the world is released. But these have nothing to do with Ryan now. At this moment, all his energy is sorting out the power in his body. Divine Power Level 4. Priesthood, Prophecy. After a long time, the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. When he felt the expected priesthood, Ryan finally felt extremely happy. But the mood changed only for a moment. The god in white immediately calmed down his emotions and turned to look outside the cave where he lived. There was nothing there in his perception, but Ryan knew that the birth of the new god was over, and the noble mother goddess would naturally come to the door. So he said, as if he had expected it, "Dear Mother Earth, what do you think of this outcome?" Suddenly, a young woman in a green dress appeared in front of him, out of thin air. The aura on the woman's body was vast and deep, but the unstoppable sense of emptiness still made her face look a little pale. At this time, Earth Mother is not the old woman in later generations. Her body is youthful and energetic, and her origin is still full. The act of giving birth to 12 gods in a row greatly damaged her vitality, but she was still a primitive ancient god who was half a level higher than powerful divine power. Your Highness Ryan, I was the one who offended you before. As for our bet, I am willing to admit defeat. After saying this, the fashionable and young Earth Mother smiled apologetically. The storms in the sky are thus far away from here, and everything becomes happy. I have to say that your accurate prediction makes me feel ashamed of my previous doubts. Even the King of Gods is surprised by your power to peer into destiny. It's okay. Ryan accepted the ancient god's apology with a smile and expressed his doubts in a timely manner. Then, noble Mother Earth, on this occasion when you have just given birth to the Son of God, why are you here? Facing Ryan's calm gaze, Gaia still said the words he had been waiting for. I'm here to invite you to Odil's mountain to attend the banquet of the God King. With a gentle smile, Gaia solemnly invited. Your Highness Ryan, today, on this special day, my eldest son, my husband, my king, Uranus, the Lord of the Sky, hopes that you can go to the sacred mountain to meet him and celebrate this important day together. If you would come, that would be the greatest gift we could ever receive. There was some emotion on his face, but Ryan was laughing in his heart. After just one prophecy, Mother Earth treated him so politely. It's just for a new prophecy, Ryan thought. But no matter what, facing the original god's invitation, Ryan bowed and accepted it as a matter of course. His face was excited for the God King's invitation, and so was his heart. Only he knows how many years he has been waiting for today. You are serious, Your Highness Gaia, Ryan said with a smile. I am extremely honored to witness the birth of the first king of the gods in Khaos. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 4 Banquet. Following the Earth Mother Gaia, Ryan walked towards a sacred mountain in the middle of the continent. The world now is different from before. With the sun, celestial bodies, and diverse weather conditions, Khaos becomes more like a real world. Perhaps because walking on Gaia's body when it was born, Ryan didn't feel the distance. Under the leadership of the other party, he can cross thousands of rivers and mountains in one step. Although there were neither 10,000 waters nor thousands of mountains at this time, Uriah's sons of the mountain god and 3,000 sons of the ocean god had not yet been born, and the earth still seemed desolate. Probably less than half a day passed, and soon, the sacred mountain was in sight. Your Highness Ryan, since Ryan agreed to come, Gaia has become worried along the way. It wasn't until she came to the place where God was born not long ago that she finally spoke. This is where the God King will rule the world in the future. Gaia looked at the towering Mount Odil's, where her third son Uriah was born. This is the highest mountain on earth, and the land closest to the sky. Here my king will condescend to rule as Lord of the Sky over all the earth. That's quite a feat. Ryan expressed his respect for this, but his tone sounded like he already knew it. As the first God King in the world, only a place like this can match the authority of Heavenly Father. Yes, Gaia frowned, but still said, he will rule over all things forever. Obviously, the Heavenly Father and the earthly mother were still in love at this time, and no trace of the sword fights in later generations could be seen. Let's go. Affected by the birth of my 12 children, this place is filled with chaotic divine power. Please follow me to avoid encountering something bad. Nodding slightly, Ryan followed suit, as if he didn't feel the subtle change in Mother Earth's attitude. He followed Gaia, and the two began to climb toward the sacred mountain. As the permanent residence of the Earth Mother, the holy mountain is not like the exposed rocks of the outside world. The original vegetation has spread here. Along the way, Ryan saw many strange flowers and fruits that he couldn't name, which were newly born creations under the plant priesthood. Maybe in a few years, with the help of the weather god, the vegetation here will spread all over the world, adding a touch of green to the desolate land. But this is all in the future. Soon, Under the leadership of Gaia, Ryan arrived at the top of the sacred mountain. "We're here." Mother Earth stopped and said to Ryan behind her. Nodding slightly, Ryan took a step forward and took stock of the appearance here. The top of Mount Kailash is empty and flat, without any trace of man-made structures. Compared with Mount Olympus in later myths, this place looks like a remote mountaintop. But Ryan was not surprised. After all, for the Lord of the Sky itself was his palace. Stepping onto the top of the sacred mountain, when Ryan was observing the environment here, 13 gods with different appearances also cast their eyes on him. Although no one used the divine power, Ryan still felt a little uncomfortable. There is no way the primitive gods don't know how to restrain their aura, and being close to them is a kind of oppression in itself. "I have an audience with you, Your Majesty." Stopping to look at it, Ryan bent slightly and expressed respect to the male god in the middle. This was not the first time he had seen Auranas. Different from the young man's appearance when we last met, he is now a tall and majestic middle-aged man. This is the result of the combined effect of fatherhood and the position of God King. It is common knowledge among the gods that the appearance of gods changes due to authority and power. Facing the audience of the strange gods, the 12 titans were a little confused. After all, they felt the weakness of Ryan's divine power. They looked at their father, waiting for his next attitude. Then they saw their majestic father stretching out his hands to greet the god before him, welcoming him without hesitation. "I'm glad you're here, dear prophet, god of prophecy." Auranas' voice was wild and powerful, a perfect match for his vocation. "Until today, I never thought that you could really see your destiny. Please forgive me for my previous misunderstanding about this. Please take a seat, Your Highness Ryan. You should sit with us." "My pleasure." Facing the different looks of the 14 gods, Ryan chose a place to sit on the top of the mountain. This is a birthday party and a party to celebrate Auranas becoming the God King. When the 12 new gods are born, they are automatically crowned by the world. As everyone gathered, the fruits of the plants on the mountain were taken by Gaia and used as meals for this banquet. The God King sat in the center, and the others were on both sides. Only the Earth Mother sat beside him. When the banquet began, apart from occasionally chatting with Ryan, Heavenly Father spent most of the time speaking to his newborn children. He shared his thoughts with his children, telling them how they should respect their father and how they could help him fulfill his role as God King. Perhaps due to the influence of paternal authority, his 12 children were silent and just responded to the God King's request. "Tasty." After tasting an unknown purple fruit, Ryan watched all this quietly. He knew the purpose of being invited and had his own ideas for this. But before that, he just wanted to eat 2 more fruits. After all, the plants on the sacred mountain today are all the ancestors of their kind, and are the first ones in the world of Khaos. These fruits are also very useful to the gods. At least for Ryan, they can help him reach the upper limit allowed by his priesthood faster. Time flies by, and to God, they don't care about the passage of time. When day and night changed for the 3rd time, Auranas finally stopped his lecture. He turned around and looked at Ryan, the god who had predicted the birth of his 12 descendants, who was sitting next to him. Although he still doesn't quite understand how such a weak divine power can glimpse destiny. But since that was the case, he didn't mind asking him some questions. Especially what the other party said at the foot of the mountain, he heard clearly. Raising the cup, Auranas spoke to Ryan again after 3 days. "Your Highness Ryan, before this, when we first met, you predicted the birth of my 12 children. Destiny is so powerful," Heavenly Father sighed with a loud voice. "Only a wise god like you can detect its destined trajectory. The fate is in the hands of Ms. Yi." Ryan smiled, raised the cup, touched Auranas from a distance, and then drank it all. "I only saw parts of it by accident. This is not wine, just plant juice, but it is still very delicious under the influence of divine power." "Then, my dear Lord Ryan, I have a question to ask you." Auranas didn't care about Ryan's humility. He seemed to be just curious about the power of prophecy. "I hope you can use the power of prophecy to tell me. In chaos, in the future of this world, I am the eternal God King, ruling the sky, the earth, and the sea. The party seemed suddenly quiet. The 12 Titans looked at Ryan with strange eyes, and the Earth Mother's eyes were full of worry. Faced with Aurena's seemingly unintentional inquiry, Ryan smiled slightly. He did not rush to answer. Instead, he put down his cup and explained the nature of all prophecies. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 5 Prophecy. Honorable God King, before making the prediction, I hope you can understand the fact that prophecy is always just observation, not creation. Taking another sip of the sweet juice, Ryan solemnly explained, I can't change fate, I just observe it, even just a part of it. And observation is not free. When you know it, it knows you. What do you mean? Facing an unfamiliar territory, the God King was a little confused. What does it knows me mean? Destiny is originally uncertain. Although it has a fixed trajectory, it does not necessarily cannot be changed. But if you try to observe it in a prophetic way, the fate will become a destined ending. You can only delay its arrival and distort its meaning, but you cannot make it disappear completely. So, do you still want me to make this prediction? At the end, Ryan asked the God King. The previous words were not made up by Ryan. This was the information he got after obtaining the prophecy priesthood. When anyone attempts to observe destiny directly, with or without the help of other gods, he himself becomes a part of it. People cannot lift themselves off the ground by their hair, so no existence can violate the shackles it has become. When he knew this, Ryan decided he would never prophesy himself. As for the prophecies made by some gods in later generations, Ryan actually wanted to call them the curse of fate. On the other side, after hearing Ryan's explanation, Aurenas breathed a sigh of relief, but then hesitated. The price of prophecy was high, which made him less afraid of the Mother of Night, who controlled destiny, but he still wanted to know his ending. The first God King. Thinking of what Ryan Yamashita called him, Aurenas made up his mind. I believe in my own strength. Looking into Ryan's eyes, Heavenly Father said this. At this time, he had just obtained the position of God King, and his powerful power doubled his confidence. Make a prophecy, Your Highness Ryan. No matter what the outcome is, I will promise you a condition that is not excessive in the name of the God King. I believe that with the power I have at this moment, nothing is destined to remain the same. As the first God King and a symbol of fatherhood, Aurenas, who was already standing at the pinnacle of powerful divine power, once again took a half step upward. Now he stands in the same position as the original gods, and even Gaia, who is not good at fighting, is no longer his opponent. This made him extremely confident. He believed that even if the outcome of the prophecy was not good, he could delay its arrival and distort its meaning, as Ryan said. Haha, the god of Khaos is always so confident. Ryan chuckled in his heart. Things finally developed as he expected. Facing the God King's gaze, Ryan nodded slightly, and his dark eyes glowed with a mysterious, white light at the next moment. This is not a deception by pretending to be a prophecy. Ryan is really exploring the future of Aurenas. But the result is obvious. The priesthood obtained just because of a prophecy is very weak, and even the power of the spiritual priesthood is several times stronger than it. In the void, Ryan saw nothing. With his current strength, it is far from enough to glimpse the fate of the God King. But this did not stop him from making his first big prediction. An era. Under the gaze of the gods, Ryan said, you will rule the world for an era. You and Mother Earth will give birth to new children, but they don't have the divine and perfect appearance like us. One day in the future, your eldest son will swing his sword at you, and your throne will be shaken.
Boom.
Nonsense. Aurenas has not yet reacted, and Oceanus on the side can no longer bear Ryan's words. Although he was only 3 days old, the eldest brother of the 12 Titans already possessed near-average divine power. Violent power surged through him, pressing toward Ryan as he tried to stop the strange god's arrogance. He did succeed. Ryan kept silent, but he also failed because the father spoke. Stop, my child. With a wave of his hand, Oceanus's divine power was easily calmed down, and Auranes looked at him. "You shouldn't attack guests." There was no emotion or anger in the God King's tone, but everyone present felt his suspicion at this moment. "Father, I swear to the world that I will never challenge your position as the God King." Seeing his father speak, the Lord of the Ocean knelt on the ground and showed his loyalty to his father. Auranes was non-committal about this. The oath did bind the gods, but it was not fatal. Even now, when the power of the oath has not yet been delegated to the world, breaking the oath will only result in a loss of divine power and turmoil in the priesthood. But if you can sit on the throne of God King, everything can be saved. Dear prophet, is this all the prophecy is? The Heavenly Father ignored his son and continued to ask the interrupted Ryan. If this is all, then this prophecy is nothing more than that. He would split his eldest son into 3 parts and throw them into the bottom of Tartarus, the dark void and the depths of the earth, so that he could never be his enemy. No, but Ryan's answer obviously didn't suit his wishes. Under the angry gaze of the Lord of the Ocean, Ryan smiled and said to the God King, "His Royal Highness Oceanus will never be a real sword wielder, Your Majesty. The prophecy shows that the one who overthrows your throne will be aided by another of your relatives. Everything ends where it begins, and the eldest son holding the sword must not be your eldest child." As soon as he finished speaking, the eyes of the remaining 11 titans in the hall changed. Only the Lord of the Ocean breathed a sigh of relief. Although he may also be an accomplice in the complete prophecy, Oceanos is definitely not the first offender. Everyone is guilty, which means everyone is not guilty. He still knows this very well. Unless his father wants to sit on the throne alone, he will not be punished. There was silence in the hall for a while, and finally it was Earth Mother who broke the silence. Her gentle face was full of worry. At this moment, Gaia was not the scheming mother of the gods. She looked at Ryan, who had just made the prediction, and asked in a serious tone, "Dear His Highness Ryan, wise prophet, I wonder if you can give more tips. Because of your prophecy, the relationship between father and child will be full of suspicion, and the newborn divine court will find it difficult to find peace. I think you don't want to see this scene either." But faced with Gaia's implicitly threatening request, Ryan calmly shook his head. "I'm so sorry, dear Earth Mother. It's not that I don't want to make interpretations, but in this regard, the prophet himself is not as wise as the listener. After all, I am just an observer and a narrator. The true meaning of fate is still far away from me." Finally, Ryan gave an answer that Gaia couldn't argue with. "If you still have doubts about this, you can go under the night. I believe that in the field of destiny, one of the 3 aspects of Ms. Yi, the destined Highness Ananke, will have a more detailed interpretation. As her eldest sister, you will definitely not return empty-handed. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 6: The God of Year, Month, Day, and Timing. The originally cheerful banquet seemed to have come to an end. After Ryan made the prophecy, only the sound of eating occasionally sounded from the top of the sacred mountain. Gaia was worried about the future of her child, and Auranes glanced at the gods in front of him and occasionally looked at the sea far away. His brother, the second child conceived by Gaia alone, Pontos, the primordial sea god, was there. There is no doubt that Ryan's prophecy of help from another relative made him suspicious of his brother. As for whether Ryan lied to him, that's impossible. The last time he predicted, Auranes did not feel the response of fate, which was why he laughed at Ryan, who claimed to be the god of prophecy. But this time, he clearly felt the aura of destiny, which was a force that all the gods bred by Khaos could never resist. Ryan said, "You feel right about this." But unlike the Eastern tradition of not keeping track of years, since then there has been a time sequence, the division of years, months, and days, and the passage of time has also been recorded. In a blink of an eye, 1,500 years have passed since Ryan made the prophecy on the sacred mountain. On this day, there was another fierce quarrel on the sacred mountain. This is not the first time. Ever since the birth of the three grotesque children of Uranus, such arguments would always break out between Heavenly Father and Earthly Mother. Uranus, they are your children too. Gaia's voice sounded, but its gentleness was mixed with some weakness and sadness. She tried countless times to persuade the God King to accept the three heirs, even if it was just to guard the door for him, but Uranus rejected her time and time again. Children? No, they are not. They are just bitches born accidentally. The voice was cold. The God King was tired of this argument. Please think carefully, my lord. They are only an appearance. Enough. 1,500 years have passed, and the sacred mountain has grown taller. The King of God stood at the place closest to the sky in the world and coldly interrupted Gaia's plea. In front of him, three one-eyed monsters were looking at him angrily. Although the mighty power of the God King pressed them to the ground, they seemed not to know what fear was, and still glared at Uranus with one eye. Behold, Gaia, such a twisted life, yet dares to face my wrath. After studying the three giants on the ground again for a while, Uranus seemed to be sure of something. The eldest son, but not the eldest. Haha, the eldest among the monsters. Isn't that also the eldest son? You are crazy, Uranus. Gaia, who already looked in her late 20s, called her husband by his first name for the first time. She didn't understand just because he didn't know fear because of his low intelligence. How could Uranus think that the other party could become the God King? There is no God King who is not even a god. Am I crazy? Maybe, but you should also stop your ridiculous pleas. Gaia's words finally completely angered the God King. He glanced at his once beloved wife lightly, and then reached out to push her aside. Standing on the top of the sacred mountain, Uranus once again mobilized the authority of the God King and announced his judgment on the giants. I have tolerated you for a long time, maybe 100 years, maybe 200 years. Uranus looked at the three giants in front of him, but still could not see fear in their eyes. But any tolerance has its limit. You dirty, ugly, despicable beings who insult my bloodline, I've had enough of your existence. Cyclops? What a ridiculous title. I will no longer forgive you because of Gaia, but will send you where you should go. You lowly trash, the bottomless abyss is your destination. In the name of the King of Gods, I declare that you are guilty of being born despicable. The sentence is forever. A loud voice came from the horizon. In a cave, Ryan raised his head slightly. The sky outside dimmed, and the sun tried its best to restrain its light. This was caused by the wrath of the Lord of the Sky. Although Uranus was born after me, he is no longer the sky itself, but he still has absolute influence. It's a little far away. Simple eyesight was not enough for Ryan to see the sacred mountain, so he decisively changed his method and used the moon in the sky to see for himself. After 1,500 years of operation, this man-made celestial body has finally become more complete. The priesthood of moon it represents has slowly climbed to the level of Godhead level 3. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Through the perspective of moon, Ryan could vaguely see that on the sacred mountain in the center of the earth, 3 streams of light flew out one after another, and then fell in the west of the earth, directly penetrating the thick strata. Through the dark cave, Ryan could feel the powerful and chaotic aura seeping out. That is the abyss, the bottom of the world, the body of the primordial god Tartarus. Unlike the other 3 primitive gods, Tartarus seems to have given up on awakening himself, and instead remains in this state of chaos and disorder. Therefore, he is the only being who has not lost power due to personification. He is still an ancient god with great divine power. Cyclops. Ryan was not surprised when he whispered the names of the 3 streams of light. Unlike the 12 titans, the Cyclops is more like a monster with great power. When they were born, there were no corresponding changes in the laws, and they were not even seen outside the sacred mountain. Of course, Uranus did not recognize their existence. Even the future second-generation God King never recognized his brothers. Zeus later rescued them, but only regarded them as craftsmen and jailers. Although the God King tolerated them for 200 years because of the existence of Mother Earth, the Heavenly Father was never a tolerant and generous God, and in the end, he couldn't help but push them into the abyss.
Boom.
There was another roar, and this time Ryan didn't need the moon to see it because the sky and the earth were connected again. It seems that Gaia's plea angered Uranus, and he made heaven and earth stick together as tightly as they did before the 12 Titans were born. The sun evaded in a panic, the weather moved from the earth to the ocean, and a large amount of vegetation was destroyed. The earth that had become green for 1,500 years returned to desolation. The God King violently released his primitive desires to vent his inner desires. Dissatisfied, Ryan hid in a cave and watched this scene quietly. The God King ruled the world for 1,500 years, and his 12 sons performed their divine duties conscientiously under oppression, but Uranus still did not like them. He often smashed the celestial bodies into pieces and laughed coldly when he saw Khaos, who was hurt and wailing as a result. He also occasionally picked off the sun and threw it into the ocean, watching his children and younger brother suffer from the conflict of forces. This was his rare entertainment project. There was no music, no wine, and there were no living creatures on the earth. In addition to several other primitive gods, Uranus could only vent his excess energy on his children. As for Ryan, he has always had little sense of existence, and the prophecy vaguely makes the God King a little afraid. Therefore, although Ryan's location could not be hidden from him, the God King still did not come to trouble him. I don't know how long it will be. 500 years or 1,000 years. The era of Heavenly Father is indeed boring, but the rule of Cronus is more interesting. Looking at the moon in the sky again, Ryan no longer focused on the outside world. Most of the lost ownerless memory has been fused, and the spiritual priesthood has also been raised by one level. It is foreseeable that when memory is fully contained, spirituality can be improved again. In addition to the priesthood, in terms of the growth of divine power, unlike spirituality, which currently provides scant divine power, the timing priesthood provides Ryan with a large amount of divine power every minute and second. The same priesthood limit does not mean that the speed of providing divine power is the same. Light is as powerful as sun, but the latter accumulates divine power faster than the former. Although timing is not a priesthood that can easily increase divine power compared to spirituality, which has not been able to level up for thousands of years, it appears to be excellent. 1,500 years have passed, and he has stood at the pinnacle of weak divine power. Not surprisingly, he was able to successfully get rid of this lowest level of divine power before the 100-armed giants were born. The noise outside continued, and Ryan fell into a deep sleep again. The priesthood is the upper limit, and the divine power is what you have now. He won't leave here before taking another step. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 10: The Earth Mother Visits. Another 500 years have passed quickly since the last time Heavenly Father was angry. Just as Ryan predicted, 100 years after the Cyclops were imprisoned in the abyss, with the birth of 300 armed giants, the God King became furious again. They had 50 heads, 100 arms, and were born with great strength. They were called Briareos, Kodos, and Gyges. Although they have no priesthood, the 100-armed giants still possess the essence of immortality, and their innate power allows them to work together to defeat even titans that have reached moderate divine power. But no matter what abilities they have, and how many good words Mother Earth has said for them, the great King of Gods still cannot tolerate their existence. Only 50 years had passed this time, and Ryan, who had just become a weak divine power, was awakened again. With the perspective of Moon, the traces of the 300-armed giants falling into the abyss are clearly visible. Throwing 6 children into the abyss in succession, this cruel behavior made the 12 titans tremble. Although they don't like their weird little brother, they're still a little sad. The drama on Mount Kailash is exciting, but it has nothing to do with Ryan. At this time, he had reached level 7 of divine power and sat quietly on the rock, waiting for the guests to visit. Prophecy, the priesthood, is still somewhat useful. Although he has not really relied on it to predict success, he will still be prompted by fate on certain things. For example, today, Ryan's face changed as he looked at the goddess in green dress who appeared in front of him. Mother Earth wore a black veil on her head. Her expression was solemn and a little sad. "We haven't seen each other for many years, dear Earth Mother," Ryan said, and he could probably guess the other party's purpose. "I want to say hello to you, but looking at your complexion, I stopped the thought of offending you." Unlike the young and energetic goddess of thousands of years ago, Gaia today looks much older. At first glance, she is already a middle-aged woman in her 30s or 40s. The originally smooth skin became a little dull, and there were subtle wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. The clear and gentle eyes showed pain. Even if the divine power between the two sides was far apart, Ryan could still feel the emptiness and decay. Mother Earth, who once had the most powerful origins, is now at the bottom of the pack among the primitive gods and cannot even maintain the status of that great divine power. This is something that has never happened before. Although the original gods in the past lost their power due to personification, their personality remained intact. The current performance of Mother Earth shows that the origin of the Earth has been severely damaged. I wonder what the Earth Mother does to come here this time? It seemed like he had been looking at it for a long time, but in fact it was just a moment. Although he had already guessed Gaia's intention, Ryan still asked, "Dear Prophet, as you said before, I can't bear it anymore." Ignoring Ryan's pretense of ignorance, Gaia said straight to the point. 2,000 years. It started out well. Although he was very strict with the children, he didn't do anything excessive in the end. He demands too much from me, but I can't blame him. As a symbol of Heavenly Father and masculinity, this is the influence of divine power on him. I accept and understand it, and I don't resent it. But it changed later. Mother Earth looked back at the Earth, as if looking at the children imprisoned in Tartarus. When the Cyclops, were born, everything changed. He began to become crazy and tyrannical. He became manic and irrational. He even believed that children who did not even have a priesthood could threaten his status. He abused the authority of the God King and locked them into the abyss. Until now, he has set his sights on my descendants who were born gods. Gaia withdrew her gaze from the Earth and looked directly at Ryan. Although the Earth Mother was never known for her force, such a look still brought a lot of oppression to Ryan. He knew that although he did not ask for anything, Gaia was somewhat dissatisfied with him as a prophet. Just out of the fear of fate, or perhaps out of the desire for a solution, whether it is Uranus or Gaia, they have always been rules-based gods in front of him. But Ryan knew that when the other party told him the rules, it was because they wanted to, not because they had to. "So, the God King feels threatened?" Ryan said with a smile, facing the Earth Mother's gaze. "Yes, the growing children make him uneasy. Hyperion, Cronus, Oceanus, and Theseus, these children have become powerful gods. Although not as good as their father, these children it's enough to cause him some trouble. Even my other descendants, except for poor Iapetus and Mnemosyne, who were born with only speech, writing, and language, are too weak. Their brothers and sisters have all become medium divine powers of gods." As the story progressed, Gaia's face also looked a little sad. She should have been happy to see the children possessing such great power, but Uranus's increasingly dangerous gaze told her that if nothing was done, they would probably follow in the footsteps of the giants. "I understand," Ryan nodded. "You hope that I can solve this problem and let them put down their grudges, is that right?" "If it can be done, that would be great," Earth Mother said. "But this is impossible." Shaking his head, Ryan said calmly, "Dear Mother Earth, I am only the god of prophecy, not the god of destiny. The moment the God King orders me to make a prophecy, his own destiny will be determined. Wrapped in prophecy. The prophecy that encapsulates the fate of the God King, even His Highness Ananke, who is destined to do so, may not be able to do anything about it." Earth Mother was speechless. Before today, in the past 2,000 years, she had visited her sister more than once, the Night Mother who had always enjoyed silence with Erebus, the Lord of Darkness. But as Ryan said, the power of prophecy and curse is closely related to its initiator. When the God King personally demands to know his fate, then this fate can no longer be stopped by anyone. Maybe the world itself can, but the world has no will of its own. That's why the God King, who also visited the lady who spent the night, believed so firmly in the prophecy, because he knew it couldn't be changed. What about another way? After hesitating for a long time, Mother Earth struggled a bit in her eyes, but she still spoke. If I want to solve this problem once and for all, what do you think I should do? Hearing these words, Ryan's heart skipped a beat. This was not nervousness or an accident, but as Earth Mother made a choice, the power of history began to gather on him. By fully witnessing an era and possessing authority related to time, one can naturally obtain the priesthood of history. This was the power that belonged to Rhea in the future, but now it stretched out its hands to a god who was born earlier. Ryan readily accepted this. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 11 Sickle. In the world of Khaos, at the foot of an unknown mountain, conversations that can affect the world are continuing. Feeling the power of history, Ryan faced the Earth Mother's inquiry and expressed that he was powerless. I am the god of prophecy, not the god of wisdom, Ryan said, shaking his head. Dear Mother Earth, I can only see the results, and it's just a future that is difficult to interpret. If you must ask me to give you a suggestion, then I can only say that the God King cannot be overthrown by strength alone. The prophecy shows that the sword wielder will shake the power of the God King. It is not to defeat him, let alone kill him, not only because the power of the God King is unmatched, but also because his throne comes from the world and is not taken. The position of God King obtained without relying on robbery can naturally not be taken away by pure force. Hearing this, Earth Mother looked a little confused. She didn't know what else besides power could make Khaos take back the position of God King he had been given. As the crowned God King of the world, his power comes from himself. He is the first existence to give birth to a new god through intercourse. The manifestation of paternal authority allows him to rule the world. I don't know how to shake his throne. Then there is nothing I can do, dear Earth Mother. Ryan shook his head with a smile. For your promise last time, I am willing to try to think of a way. But as I said, I am not the god of wisdom after all. Okay. After a while, Earth Mother proposed several ideas, but Ryan rejected them one by one. Finally, feeling the breath of Aurena's returning to the earth from the sea, Gaia had to leave temporarily. She came out before while the Heavenly Father went to find his children for entertainment. Now she has to go back quickly. Dear Your Highness Ryan, no matter what, I am grateful for your help. Earth Mother finally said, but in the near future, if I really make up my mind, I hope to get your prophecy. I will. Ryan wished for this. I will do my best to predict the success or failure of things for you when you are ready. Nodding with satisfaction, Gaia's green clothes disappeared in front of Ryan in a trance. Even though his vitality was greatly reduced, Earth Mother's whereabouts were still beyond his ability to detect. But Ryan is not envious. After all, he knows that Gaia's power will continue to weaken. Even in the distant future, she will become the only primitive god who has completely lost her great power. Giving birth to Typhon, the king of monsters who once defeated Zeus, caused her origin to lose again. The birth of the goddess of agriculture would tear apart her control of plants. The appearance of Hades made the land of the underworld leave her. Uri, the descendants of the mountain gods of Asia, and the descendants of the river gods of the Lord of the Ocean divided her control over the earth. This goddess, who was born with the most powerful origins, was reduced to mediocrity through repeated childbirths and the backstabbing of the world. Perhaps she is still powerful in the eyes of ordinary people, but the past god kings have never really taken her seriously. I'm afraid it won't be long before she returns to the sacred mountain this time, but she'll be greeted by another torture. Level 7 Divine Power. Once I get what I want from Cronus, everything should be on track. Next time we meet, I won't be so easy to talk to. Looking at the place where Gaia disappeared, Ryan knew that although Mother Earth respected him, it was only superficial. In terms of power, Earth Mother, like other gods, has never taken Ryan seriously. Emotionally, she resented Ryan, even though he had always been on her side. Be lenient to yourself and strict to others. In this regard, there is no difference between man and God. After silently examining his divine power, Ryan continued to sleep. Among the 3 generations of god-kings of Khaos, he was only a witness in the era of Uranus. There are no animals on the earth yet, so it is not the time for the power of spirituality to be revealed. At least until the 2nd generation of god-kings comes to the throne, the first humans are born, and a new generation of gods come to the world, then there will be room for him to move in this world. Until then, he could only wait. Mount Odeals, the abode of the god-king. Happily trapping Phoebe at the bottom of the sea, Uranus admired the Sea of Light for a long time. The god of light made the waves of the waves glow with splendor, but the lifeless ocean at this time was soon tired of the god-king. They are getting stronger. Returning to the top of the sacred mountain, the god-king thought this way. 2,000 years have passed, and the power of the Titan gods has reached its peak. Even from the perspective of the Lord of the Sky, if the blessing given to him by the position of god-king is removed, he must face the power of his descendants. 300 years, 500 years at most, I have to do something. Making up his mind, the god-king stood up and walked towards his wife. There are very few gods in today's world. If he doesn't want to be the king of this world by himself after disposing of his children, then he must hurry up and create a few more gods. He had done this before, but it was a pity that Gaia's 2 births failed him. Even he is a little confused now. How could the sky and the earth create such a monster? If Tartarus didn't have a personal consciousness, he would have doubted whether this ancient god who stayed at the bottom of the world all year round had done something to offend the king of gods. Gaia, my wife, my queen of gods. While thinking, Uranus had already arrived in front of Mother Earth. He did not realize at all that Mother Earth had left the sacred mountain. As the personality manifestation of the earth, Gaia easily concealed Uranus's perception. His Majesty. Gaia seemed to sense what the god-king meant. Although she knew it would be useless, she still requested, "In your eyes, holding this sickle destined to be engraved in history, can I fulfill the unanimous wish of my mother, my brothers, and my sisters, to overthrow the cruel old master and allow me to ascend the throne? In the future, can I create greater achievements than my father and rule the sky, earth, and ocean forever?" After a moment of silence, Ryan didn't know what to say. These are the god-kings of Khaos. Even though they have witnessed the horror of the prophecy, they are still so obsessed with fate. But Cronus had already spoken, and Ryan simply complied with his request. Since they like prophecies so much, he will make the last big prophecy before integrating the prophetic priesthood. After making a decision, Ryan nodded to Mother Earth, and his eyes immediately shimmered. Gaia and the Titans were quiet, and no one wanted to disturb the seer's observation of destiny. With different thoughts, they quietly waited for the final result. After a long time, as soon as the light in Ryan's eyes dissipated, Cronus couldn't wait to ask, "What do you see? Will I succeed?" "You will succeed." When he came back to his senses, Ryan said calmly, "You will succeed in defeating your father. Although the process still requires a battle, victory will eventually belong to you. But I hope you remember Dash." He looked directly at Mother Earth, as if looking directly at the future god-king in her belly. "Nothing lasts forever, Cronus. You will succeed, but you won't succeed forever. One day in the future, when life and death are reversed, you will understand what I am saying. Whatever you gain, you will lose. This is how you thrive. You will die by this." All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 17 Prelude. Nearly 300 years have passed since the last meeting with the Earth Mother. Ryan's power has increased again. Although he has been staying in Hades for these years, with the implementation of the calendar and the movement of the moon, he has reached divine power level 9, close to the peak of weak divine power. Among his many priesthoods, time sequence has undergone the most drastic changes. Now, it is a powerful priesthood that can support him to reach divine power level 12. Iapetus among the 12 titans was even weaker than him. After all, simple speech was too insignificant. But Ryan didn't care, because he knew that soon he would have a real foothold in the world of Khaos. According to the prophecy, the mysterious induction of the priesthood may be today. Mount Odiles. It has been 300 years since the god king imprisoned his heirs. At first, Aurenas, who committed the atrocity, was still a little worried. He was not sure whether his plan was really effective. He checked the condition of the Titans from time to time, and even cut open Gaia's abdomen again. But the final result reassured him that the prophecy was indeed prevented by him. His children stayed there honestly, and the laws corresponding to their clergy showed no signs of significant disorder. Except that Mother Earth was getting weaker day by day, nothing unexpected happened. Aurenas finally let go and proved with facts that fate can be stopped by power. From then on, he no longer worried about it. He once looked for traces of Ryan. After all, he had defeated the prophecy, so the god of prophecy had nothing to fear. He planned to vent his worries about this in the past, and he wanted the prophet to know that nothing is absolute in the face of real power. But what disappointed Aurenas was that he searched the land and oceans and used the power of the sky to search the world, but still found no trace of Ryan. Maybe it's sheltered in the land of eternal night, or somewhere else. At least in terms of escaping, the prophet is still very capable. In the end, the god king, who found nothing, gave up his search. He didn't want to provoke other primitive gods, but he had nothing to do, so he had to stay with his queen all day long, releasing his desires day and night. On this day, as usual, the sky sank slightly and connected with the peaks of Odiles Mountain. This is not the first time that heaven and earth have come together because of the actions of their incarnations. But now there is not even a single bystander in Khaos. It's time, Themis said. Unlike her siblings, the god of justice and law has historically been silent. She is not close to her own people, and her power is not strong, because no one in Khaos cares about justice or law at this time. The god king was swaying his power wantonly, while the weak Themis could only sit silently and watch. For this, she blindfolded herself. Different from the explanations in later myths, at this moment she simply did not want to see all this disorder. But now that the god king was about to be overthrown, she was the first to cheer for her brother. Yes, it's time. Rhea also spoke. Perhaps due to their similarity in priesthood, the goddess of passage of time has always been close to her youngest brother. As a goddess, she was not born to be the eldest son, so instead of hating her brother, she was proud of his bravery. You're right. It's time. Cronus looked up. Reaching out his hand, he pulled out the prophesied sickle from his mother's flesh and blood. It's not beautiful in appearance, and even looks a bit rough. The flint blade gleamed, and plant vines wrapped around the handle. Cronus held it, feeling boundless pain and despair. That was the pain Gaia suffered while conceiving the sickle, which only the titans who suffered with her could hold. Heaven and earth are connecting, and Cronus can clearly see this scene in Gaia's belly. His hand holding the handle of the knife was shaking a little, which was both fear and excitement. Even now, the fear that Aurenas has brought to him for thousands of years still exists. He was afraid of his father, as anyone would be afraid of pain. But he still took courage, because the throne of the god king was just ahead. I will succeed, he thinks. Hold the handle of the knife and swing it down with all your strength. An era is over. Hades, not standing on the ground, but hanging in the sky. Under the influence of divine power, Ryan looked down at the land. It's about to begin. Looking up at the top of the underworld, Ryan seemed to see through the strata a scene destined to be recorded in history. He did not go up and watch, not only because it was a war between Heavenly Father and the Titans, but also because he had more important things to do. I'm going to start too. Ryan was a little excited. Only he knew that he was going to do something that would never be allowed by Khaos. But at this particular moment, no one could stop him. Ryan stared ahead quietly. I don't know when the moon, originally hanging on the ground, lost its trace. Its creator, the source of its existence, took it down and passed through the earth to a strange place. Now, the silver-white light body hangs above the underworld. The soft and bright light illuminated the underworld, which had not seen the light of day for thousands of years, and the power belonging to Mingyu began to gather towards Moon. This is not only because there should be a dark moon here, but also because of the oath of the future God King. However, Ryan knows very well that Khaos will definitely take back this authority after the birth of the real Hades moon. This is a common routine used by world consciousness. It has no subjective consciousness, it only has instinct. So it never cares who a thing belongs to, it just acts according to its own rules. But from now on, nothing like this will happen again. With a slight smile, Ryan stretched out his hand to straighten his silver-white robe. On this important day, he still wanted to have a sense of ceremony. He held the oracle tablet in his hand and the vase of life at his waist. With the origin of time and space surrounding him, Ryan walked towards the moon. As if he didn't touch anything, the Lord of the Moon came to the inside of Moon. Unlike the light outside, it was dark here at this time. The chaotic time sequence that was once bound by the God King's order is now wandering here. The past and future are uncertain, and the length of time has no scale. This place is more like the beginning of creation, where everything was so chaotic. Looking at this scene, Ryan reached out and lifted up the origin of time and space intertwined with silver and gold. He broke it up and blended it into the space. The original origin was scattered, and it began to combine with the chaotic time sequence of this place. But it has lost its original solid state and is dissipating at 1,000 times faster. If nothing else happens, within 3 months at most, maybe 2 months, Cronus will instinctively take back this origin, and Ryan will not be able to accuse him of breaking his oath. But now, these origins are not available even for a day. The spiritual origin that had been hidden for an era poured out of Ryan for the first time. It wrapped around Moon and its creation. Using this as a medium, timing, prophecy, the dark moon, and even the power absorbed when the moon is running, such as light, celestial bodies, changes, and even the death and desolation that just gathered after arriving in the underworld. All concepts are at this time and spirituality, confluence. They merge together, torn apart by the madness of spirituality, and mixed into indescribable chaos. It was also like absolute darkness, and everything was empty. Only Ryan stands here. He is the only existence here. I have finally waited for this day. Ryan felt a little emotional. He could feel that the will of the world had locked onto him. Undoubtedly, he angered the world by allowing spirits to devour other sources. Khaos doesn't care whether these origins belong to him. It only cares that these things originally controlled by it are out of its control. So it sent out a mysterious call, and all the gods in the world received this special message, which was similar to the sound of laws at the birth of gods. All the gods knew that in the underworld, under the earth, there was a god in charge of spirituality who violated the will of the world. He who stops him will be rewarded, and whoever helps him will be punished by the world. But just as Ryan had calculated, time passed minute by minute and nothing happened. In the middle of Moon, in the dark and chaotic void, Ryan's divine body collapsed on its own, turning into matter and integrating with the environment. In the moon at this moment, the earth is empty and chaotic. There is darkness on the abyss. Ryan's spirit is moving on the water. In this void, a voice broke through the silence. This is the original one from which all things arise. Let there be light, he said. So the next moment, there was light in the dark void. When he saw that the light was good, he separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day and the darkness night. There was evening and there was morning. This was the first day. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek mythology, the spiritual dominator. Chapter 18. The God King loses his throne. Time goes back to a while ago. Heaven and earth are still in harmony, and the world is as peaceful as before. But that day, an accident happened. Without the slightest warning, at a certain moment, under the sky and on the ground, a roar full of pain spread throughout the world. The supreme divine power shook the void, and everything could feel the pain and anger of the God King. At the same time, on the top of Mount Otis, a gap opened in the earth, and the 12 titans stepped out one after another. The leader was holding a bloody sickle, and his expression was tough and determined. He is tall and heroic, and time and space surround him. 11 brothers and sisters stood behind him, and together they resisted the oppression of the God King in front of them. When Cronus' scythe swung, the oath was over. They are not knife wielders or facilitators, they are just bystanders who know but do not report anything. But now, without the constraints of the oath, they stood decisively opposite the God King. Of course, Uranus is no longer the God King at this moment. When the symbol of the male god is chopped off, and when both parents and children stand opposite, the symbol of Uranus's fatherhood collapses. Every moment, the power and position belonging to the God King were passing away from him. When he recovered from the pain, his strength had dropped by nearly half. "Give me back!" The Heavenly Father roared angrily and grabbed the flesh and blood that fell to the ground with his big hand. With God's recovery ability, as long as he can take back a part of himself, he can be restored to his original state in the next moment. Close. Uranus looked happy, but in the next moment, a flash of silver light flashed, and the distance between them was instantly opened again. The Titans had sat back and watched to resist the divine power of the God King, but at this moment, as Uranus regained consciousness, his power was no longer what it once was. After all, he is no longer the God King. Boomstreepje. The Lord of the Sky's renunciation and anger, his flesh and blood being cut off, the betrayal of the God Queen, and the rebellion of his descendants all made him lose his mind. He released his divine power crazily and rushed towards his body. The Titans were difficult to stop, but Oceanus came up with a plan. He rushed forward, grabbed his father's body, and threw it towards the sea. The sky instinctively blocked this action, but the bodies still fell to the sea. Uranus looked with expectant eyes, hoping to get help from his brother. But the result disappointed him again. Pontos betrayed him without hesitation. Although he was taciturn, he still hated his violent brother. So he used his divine power to hide his body in the waves and under the sea. As a result, Heavenly Father lost his sense of the body, and only blood foam floated on the sea. How dare you? Uranus roared angrily. He did not expect that even his own brother would dare to betray him. In his eyes, these relatives of the primitive gods have always been cowardly. They let him take whatever he wanted and never resisted. "My father, this is the consequence of your cruelty." In the sky, Cronus pointed his bloody sickle at his father. Until this moment, he still tried to use words rather than force to make the other party give in. After all, he knew very well that even without the position of God King, Uranus was still the master of the sky closest to the great divine power. "Give up. Your madness has made all the gods resist you. Give up the position of God King. You are still the master of the sky." Boomstreepje. There was no response, and Cronus was greeted by the violent divine power of the Father. He unfolded his divine body, and the sky also pressed down. As the incarnation of the sky, he also has the potential for great divine power. When he exploded with all his strength, the weather was tampered with, and the celestial bodies were destroyed. Pieces of the sun cracked and fell to the ground. Everything began to burn. The light was blocked, the ocean currents were cut off, and the blood of the Titan gods fell like rain. Only Cronus and Rhea escaped. They relied on the authority of time and space to dodge crazily to avoid their father's final madness. Although he didn't know why, Cronus could feel that his father's power was still weakening. Something seemed to be changing. He is using his divine power to suppress it, but this transformation is becoming more and more intense, so his divine power is also constantly weakening. As long as he persists, Cronus believes that he will be the final winner. The war between the gods is breaking out, and strange fluctuations are also occurring in the land of eternal night. The chains of laws are dancing all over the sky, which is a sign of the birth of God. Perhaps because of the negative emotions that broke out before the God King lost his throne, perhaps because of the chaos among the sky, the sun, and the celestial bodies, the child of Nyx and Erebus was born. 8 breaths came to the world one after another. 2 of them had some light-related origins from the Titans, and the rest were accompanied by negative emotions. Ethel, the god of skylight. Hemera, goddess of day. Moros, the god of misfortune. Ker, the god of destruction. Eurynomous, the god of decay. Ors, goddess of sorrow. Apate, the goddess of deception. Phylides, goddess of lust. Unlike the birth of the 12 Titans, the 8 children of Nyx did not have a huge impact on the world, so their birth did not have additional help. Not surprisingly, it will take at least years for these gods to come to the world one by one. However, at this moment, something happened that surprised all the gods. The shock to the laws caused by the birth of God and the war between gods continued, but a warning from the world suddenly came. In Hades, in the moon, there is a being in charge of spirituality who is embezzling the source of the world. Anyone who stops him will be rewarded by the world, which is the instinctive reaction of the world. But unfortunately, no one has time to solve this matter now. It's him. It's him who took away my priesthood. Mnemosyne fell to the ground at this moment, and her clothes were covered with divine blood, but she still screamed. As early as when she was born, she sensed that the priesthood of memory was born with her, but due to unknown reasons, it was not under her control. Damn it! The divine power of the Lord of the Sky flashed through again, and Cronus's face couldn't help but become ferocious. He has already felt at this moment that Ryan not only conceals the spiritual priesthood, but for some reason, his power is accompanied by a weak divinity of time and space. With the help of this divinity, the origin that originally belonged to him was being devoured madly. This was the origin he handed over voluntarily, so there was no resistance at all. He felt the lack of strength in his body, but Cronus could only grit his teeth and persist. With the help of the power of time and the help of the goddess of passage of time, he temporarily maintained his level of divine power. Without hesitation, he still chose to deal with Uranus. It is too late to go to the underworld now. Cronus can only hope to defeat his father and use the power of the God King to maintain his own power. Now, he has no way out. In the land of eternal night, the birth of the Son of God began to accelerate, and the children that originally took years to come into the world were compressed into a few days, but the water was still far from quenching the near thirst. The world's demands echoed on the chain of laws, but no one responded for a long time. This is Ryan's only and best chance. The Heavenly Father and the Earthly Mother are at war with the 12 Titans, and the twin gods of the night are giving birth to a son. Tartarus is as willless as ever, and no one can stop what he is doing now. The next moment, as if in response to the world's targeting, fluctuations in fate came from Hades. All the gods could feel that chaos fate was being torn apart. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 19. God created the world in 7 days. Time goes back to a while ago. Different from the chaos in the outside world at this time, in Moon, Ryan's creation is still continuing. At the core of Moon, chaotic timing is released. Just like at the beginning of creation, at this moment, time has no measure. This is a trait Lane deliberately retained. In his view, both order and chaotic time and space have value. As long as it is controllable, it has meaning. Therefore, in the newly born world, the deeper you go, the more chaotic the timing becomes. The shallower the place, the more order prevails. But at the core, it is as lawful as the outside world, and that is also Ryan's future residence. In the newly born interface at this moment, Ryan has no body, and his spirit is floating at the root of the world. The matter decomposed from the divine body was combined with the source power in the life bottle, and a substance that was both virtual and substantial was born. He used this substance to form earth and water, the most basic substances in the world, but Ryan needed something else to separate them. "Let there be a firmament between the waters, to separate the water from the water," he said. So the spiritual world has a firmament, which separates the water below the firmament from the water above the firmament. He called the firmament heaven. There was evening and there was morning. This is the second day. With light and darkness and sky, the world also needs a carrying entity. Then Ryan's spirit moved to the middle of the water, which is also the middle of the world. "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and the dry land shall be exposed," he said. So the waters gathered together in one place, and he called the dry land earth, and the gathering of waters he called the sea. "Let the earth bring forth grass, seed-bearing vegetables, and fruit-bearing trees, according to their kind, and let the earth bring forth its fruit with its seed in it." So the earth produced grass and vegetables bearing seeds according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit bearing seeds according to their kinds. There was evening and there was morning. This is the third day. The earth appeared, and the ocean was divided. With the help of the life bottle, Ryan created spiritually evolved creations starting from the simplest plants. He could feel that the battle in the outside world was getting more intense, and the birth of the twin gods of the dark night was also accelerating. But this didn't bother him. After all, in this chaotic interface, he could easily stretch one day into 7 days. Ryan's spirit looked up at the empty sky, and he condensed the concepts of the moon and the celestial body. The spiritual world does not need the sun, but the moon has more than one cycle. He said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to separate the day from the night, and these lights shall be for signs, to establish seasons, days, and years, and they shall shine in the firmament of the sky to give light on the earth." So he made a great light, divided into 7 parts, and he made stars to correspond with the seasons, days, and years. He placed these lights in the firmament of heaven to give light on the earth, to govern day and night, and to separate light from darkness. There was evening and there was morning. This is the 4th day. The celestial body appeared, and Ryan's accumulation was nearly exhausted. But in addition to what he gained in this life, he also had things left over from his previous life. There are no stars in the outside world yet, but the origin of stars is already being nurtured. When he created the stars, the corresponding origin of the world began to be absorbed by him. This absorption will not stop until the true star god is born. Extracting flowers, birds, fish, and insects from his memory, Ryan poured the liquid in the life bottle again. He is not yet able to create things on his own in reality, but in the spiritual realm, he is the only supreme being. The water must nourish living things. On the earth and in the sky, there must be winged ones to fly, he said. So, he created the great fish and brought forth in the water every living creature that moves, according to its kind. He also created every winged creature according to its kind. He blessed them so that they could multiply with each other. As a result, they gained the ability to reproduce and gradually increase in number. There was evening and there was morning. This is the 5th day. Primitive life appears, and then comes the hardest part. Ryan once wanted to create humans, but this was beyond his ability because in his memory, there was no pure human being made of spirituality. So he gave up his original idea and mixed his own flesh and blood with the origin of life. He sorted out the good, the bad, the high quality, and the ordinary. He will use them individually to create life. He said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, cattle, creeping things, and wild beasts of the earth, according to their kinds." So he created the wild beasts of the earth according to their kinds, the cattle according to their kinds, and every creeping thing on the earth according to its kind. He said, "I will create them in my image, after my likeness. I will make them rule over the sea, the air, the earth, and all life that exists in the world." Therefore, he created divine life in his own image. He created them in his image. Spirituality is opposite to matter, so the feminine-dominated divine appears in the form of a woman. He blessed them and promised them eternal life. He ordered them to manage the order of the world on his behalf. There was evening and there was morning. This is the 6th day. The devouring of many sources by spirituality is coming to an end. Time, space, and spirituality are the basis for the existence of this world. Order and chaos are divided inside and outside the world. Ryan stood at the root of the world, and he gave himself a new body. He has taken away most of the power of the life bottle, and the rest is the source power corresponding to matter. From then on, the liquid in the Aquarius can only act on matter, not spirituality. All spiritual life in the world is controlled by the spiritual master. The world is becoming more and more angry. Of course, using a personification word like angry may not be appropriate. It is just an instinct to prevent the loss of authority. The birth of the two gods of the dark night is coming to an end, but Ryan also ushered in the last day of creation. He took down the priesthood of prophecy, he took down the priesthood of history, and finally, he took out the 3 oracular tablets. He threw the 3 into the origin of the new interface, and the spirit digested them in an instant. As a result, the time and destiny of the world of Khaos were shaken, and their power was continuously injected into the new interface. Transformed by spiritual power, the oracle tablets were reborn in the world. From then on, the world of Khaos no longer had a destined fate. What the spirit does not interfere with is destined, but what the spirit interferes with is unknown. Stretching out his hand, Ryan picked up the first slate. As at the beginning, there is a motto engraved on the stone: Know thyself. Lane kept this line, but he wrote new content on it: Know the world, and then know yourself. He used the power of memory to inscribe on stone everything he had witnessed from the beginning of creation. He gave it history and carved it with new characters belonging to the spiritual world. In this way, a powerful artifact embryo was born. It symbolizes the past of the world and is an unchanging truth. Reaching out again, Ryan picked up the second slate. There is also a line of words engraved on it: Don't overdo anything. He left this line and added a new motto: Do not overdo anything. The law is the criterion. He engraved the calendar on it and engraved all the rules of the interface on it. The content on it will change as the interface is improved. From now on, it is the creation code. Finally, he picked up the third slate. Commitment brings pain. That's what it says. He erased this line of text and extracted the source power of the oldest text. Before the stone was born, Lane put it aside. At this moment, in the roots of the world, several artifacts are being nurtured. Some belong to life, and some belong to time. They are all creations born spontaneously. Ryan took one look at them, then let them continue to conceive. Then, he stretched his hand out of the world, intercepted some of the blood droplets dropped by Heavenly Father, and then sat in the center of the interface. All things in heaven and earth were created, and he called this interface spiritual world. There was evening and there was morning. This is the 7th day. At the same time, outside the spiritual world, the new interface has stabilized, and in the sky of the underworld, the figure of Ms. Yi quietly appears. It's too late. The black skirt swings lightly, and invisible power is released. The next moment, in front of this supreme figure, the entire underworld began to tremble slightly. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 20, The Two Gods of Dark Night. What a miracle of creation. The 7 levels of interface are all different. This is a new world that is subordinate to chaos, but is independent in origin. Next to the illusory moon, Ms. Ye's soft voice came. Just like herself, erratic, seemingly false but still real. She was wearing a black dress woven in the night. Anyone or a god who looked at it could only know that the person wearing it was beautiful, but how beautiful it actually was could only be described in dreams. Even Ryan only accidentally glimpsed Nyx in the form of a girl at the moment when the original gods were born. Apart from this, the appearance of this ancient creation god has never been known to outsiders. She is like the night, mysterious and hazy. What a pity. Nyx said cruel words in a quiet tone. If it were before, I could crush it. But now, its origin has been reshaped. Time and space and destiny are spiritually combined. Unless Khaos is willing to give me all the remaining power of time and space, I will not be able to contact it. Nyx could feel that the spirit world was right in front of her, even covering most of the underworld. But it was useless, because there was a spiritual separation between the two parties. Nyx can use the power of destiny to fix the trajectory of fate, but she does not have the power of time and space to break this shield. In many cases, divine authority is absolute. Even if her power was enough to shake the entire underworld, she could not break through this barrier, just like Zeus in later generations could not stop the hypnosis of the god of sleep. But Khaos won't do that. Suddenly, a male voice of unknown age came from beside Ms. Yi. The voice was calm, but the tone was mocking. Obviously, the speaker did not like Khaos instinct. This is a world without self. Just like our body, we would rather be slowly sucked blood than understand what it means to stop losses in time. That is Erebus, the Lord of Darkness. His existence is even more secretive than Nyx. After all, he is the darkness itself. Maybe we can talk, Erebus said. Ryan knew he was speaking to himself. In the past, I have ignored your existence because of your weakness. But the facts tell me that as an ancient creation god older than us, your power is much stronger than you show. The Lord of Darkness said so, and he truly believed it. As the oldest of the gods, the original gods knew of Lion's existence. But after they sensed Ryan's power, they stopped paying attention to him. If Uranus hadn't been interested in the weakest ancient god later, not even the Earth Mother would have come to see Ryan, let alone a series of subsequent prophecies. In the spiritual world, Ryan was a little hesitant when faced with the invitation from the Lord of Darkness. From a fundamental point of view, Ryan, who had just completed the creation of the world, was extremely powerful. He plundered a large amount of origin from the world. Even if it has not been digested, its intensity is completely beyond his imagination. Especially the Oracle Slate, the power of destiny and order that Ryan obtained from it was terrifying, and there were even many miscellaneous powers. For example, text is one of them. The innate words carved on the stone slab are older than Mnemosyne, the god of words. It was this power that Ryan used to create the spiritual words that belong to the spiritual world. The powerful origins are stacked on top of each other. In Ryan's perception, if the spirituality at this time is measured by the priesthood, it is already close to the intensity of the sky. Even when he fully digests this harvest, he can reach a higher level, but in fact, Ryan's power is not strong. Just like the original sea god Pontos, before he was divided into priesthoods, the ocean was not inferior to the sky, but he could never be as good as Uranus. This is not a difference in priesthood, but a difference in actual power. The priesthood determines the upper limit of the god, and the level of divine power determines the current power of the god. Ryan Kong has a powerful origin, but he is now the same as the newly born original Poseidon, with only level 11 divine power. If there were other gods outside, even Gaia, Ryan would dare to go out to meet them, but the two gods of the Dark Night were different. These two primordial gods were only slightly personified, and therefore, their power was much greater. At this time, there was silence both inside and outside the spiritual world. After hesitating for a long time, Ryan finally gave up the idea of avoiding him. He can't stay in the spirit world forever and slowly accumulate divine power over tens of thousands of years. He still has a lot of things to do, not to mention that he has been born with the spirit world. Even if he is caught by the opponent, the worst he can do is die once and lose his divine power. As long as the spirit world is still there, he can regain his divine body at any time, and it is impossible for the other party to trap him forever. But by that time, the relationship between him and the two gods of the Dark Night will be strong. Having made up his mind, Ryan took one step forward. The next moment, his figure appeared outside the spiritual world. The silver-white shadow turned from virtual to solid, and the robe was dotted with lavender lines. Ryan stood in front of Ms. Yi and nodded to her. He is no longer the person he used to be. Even the original 5 gods were no longer worthy of his stoop. Good morning, Your Highness Nyx and His Highness Erebus. I have kept you waiting for a long time. I wonder what you want to say when you see me. Narrowing her eyes slightly, Mizzy examined the young god in front of her. Unlike other male gods in the world at this time, Ryan does not have obvious muscles, nor does he wear simple clothes made of divine power. His silver-white robe looks very distinctive, and his whole person has a different feeling. Haha, you are really surprising, Your Highness Ryan. You seem to be out of tune with the gods. I guess you must not have been like this in front of my miserable sister before. Accompanied by a burst of laughter, Nyx's erratic voice sounded again. But for some reason, Ryan always felt that the other party was acting strangely. Perhaps, but if Earth Mother could let go of her arrogance earlier, she might not have her current end. Besides, I don't see how you and Mother Earth are so sisterly. With a chuckle, Ryan was non-committal about Ms. Ye's evaluation. When you are still weak, you always have to be like the light. If he had had the power he is now, Ryan wouldn't have to go out of his way to make any prophecy. Just like if he were a great god now, even if the twin gods of the Dark Night were aware of the will of the world, they would just pretend they didn't hear it. However, Your Highness Erebus, please forgive me for being rude. Ryan said with a smile. His tone was somewhat casual. But can you please come out and speak? I'm really not used to talking to invisible gods. Since you invited me, I should come out and meet you. You're right, I was rude. The next moment, when the voice of the Lord of Darkness fell, Ryan saw his appearance. A black hood covered his body. The black was different from Nyx's black dress. The color of the black dress is more like a changing black, while the hood of the Dark Lord is more like a black hole. It itself has no color, but only by comparing it with the surroundings, everyone knows that it is black there. Frowning slightly, Ryan discovered that Erebus did not actually hide his whereabouts. He has been standing there, but his sense of existence is too weak, so weak that it is as if he does not exist. Compared with Nyx's rude words and crush it to pieces, this Dark Lord is really difficult to deal with. The move in front of him was undoubtedly an intimidation, but Ryan had to take it, because for him, this ability to hide was more fearful than pure strength. The only three beings with secret authority in the world are gathered here at this moment. One can hide secrets with history, and the other can hide secrets with night. Only Erebus, the darkness itself, is the secret. After thinking for a moment, Ryan spread his hands. The spiritual brilliance emerged and turned into thousands of nascent points of light. This is the fetal egg of the soul. As long as you use divine power to shape it, you can create a nymph or a demon. And this is also a gift prepared by Ryan. The gods should be noble. Ryan said, they can obey whoever they should, but they should not serve anyone. Treating your own children as servants will eventually lead to bad consequences. The embryo of the soul, a small gift, may the tragedy of our Heavenly Father never happen again in the eternal night. The answer to a threat is always another threat. And the only thing in this world that scares the primitive gods is probably the uncertain fate. Ryan's meaning is obvious. If you can't kill me, then you have to think carefully about the consequences of being my enemy. It's not easy. 18 chapters have passed since then, and the contract has finally been signed. As a new writer, there are still many shortcomings in the words I write. For example, some places have abrupt transitions, some places cannot describe big scenes, and some places have unnatural dialogues, etc. But there is no way. Being aware of the problem does not mean that the problem can be solved. I can only say that I am slowly accumulating experience. I hope that after writing more, I will be able to write novels above the average level. All credit goes to the original author. When the symbol of your male god disappears, you can't use your divine power to reshape it. Because it is not only your organ, but also the representative of all your positive powers. Without it, there will no longer be any positive power in your body. Is that so, my dear Father God? Or should I call you Dear Mother Goddess? Ha 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 ha. Amidst the laughter, Arena's face turned ugly for the first time. The other Titans seemed to understand something and began to look at their father with strange eyes. Shut up. You rebellious 1 inch. You are the rebel. Cronus sneered, interrupting his father's scolding. He raised the knife and looked at his father. He was once so powerful, but now he only has verbal attacks left. Cronus felt a little emotional, but immediately felt the emptiness in his body, and he no longer hesitated. You betrayed the mother goddess and the will of Khaos. Your atrocities should have been punished long ago. I, Cronus, the king of time and space, declare in the name of the future king of gods that the god of the sky is guilty and should be punished with eternal sleep. The sentence is eternal. The next moment, the distance seemed to not exist in front of him. He was obviously thousands of miles away from his heavenly father, but his sword pierced the heart of Auranes at the next moment. The Lord of the Sky had tried to block it, but this time, his invincible divine power failed to break the slowness of the power of time. Right in front of the gods, he was pierced by a scythe, and his blood spilled onto the earth. I win, father, Cronus said softly in a voice that only two people could hear. You won? Haha, maybe. Feeling the increasingly drastic changes in his body, Auranes knew that unless he was really willing to have his gender distorted by the world, he would have no choice but to sleep to resist the transformation. But at the last moment, the proud Lord of the Sky still did not bow his head. He looked at his child with cold eyes. His voice was also very soft, but every creature under the sky could hear it clearly. Cronus, my son, I want you to remember. You can win once, but you cannot win forever. Where everything begins, it will end. Yes, the prophecy is like this. It is like this for me, and it will be like this for you. Watching Cronus' expression that suddenly became frightened and angry, Heavenly Father laughed heartily for the last time. I curse you, he said. You will be overthrown by your children just like me. The top of the sky is my destination, and Tartarus is your future. Cronus, I am waiting for you, my child. Lan. The scythe fell to the ground, but no one cared. Before them, the personified form of Auranes disappeared. He turned into an invisible air current, following the body he was born in, all the way up to an unfathomable height. The sky began to separate from the earth, and the two that were once often connected would never meet again. From then on, the distance between heaven and earth was immeasurable, and it was difficult for gods to predict its height. The story of the Lord of the Sky, the first god-king of Khaos, ends today. I will be the new king. With no expression on his face, Cronus picked up the fallen scythe and looked at his brother. Who is in favor and who is against? All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 24 Final Thoughts. The end of Spreading Flowers, with a total of 23 chapters and 50,000 words, is the end of the first volume. It was the first time for a newcomer to write a book. Within half a month, he experienced not knowing how to submit a manuscript, being rejected, being sent without a signature, and all kinds of stupid operations. A total of 40,000 words were finally saved. I would like to thank the editor. I would also like to thank the book friends who commented on the book on the first day it was released, so that I am not like many newcomers in the post forum who said that I was autistic due to the single-player attack. I won't post too many personal reflections, but let's go back to the first volume, which has only a few chapters. Regarding this volume, I actually want to write more, but there is really nothing to say about the era of Auranes. In the records of Greek mythology, the first two god kings are actually mentioned briefly, so I have to use about 20 chapters to describe them. The Heavenly Father has been hung up in the sky, and there will be no more scenes for him for at least 2 epochs. Whether he will appear in the future depends on the situation. If so, it will definitely be a long time later, and probably in a way that no one expected. Then he will continue to love and kill his children. Then comes Volume 2, The Age of Cronus. I will write more about Cronus. After all, although he is not as famous as Zeus, he did do a lot of things, and his final fate is easier to unfold. He will probably definitely be able to compete in the resurrection match, but that will be at least 100 chapters later. This volume is probably about the birth of the first human beings, the birth of the second generation of Titans, the conflicts between the gods, etc. There is quite a lot to write about. At least it's not like the first era, where there isn't much of a story, and the main character is pretty incompetent and can only be a spectator and promoter. Let's talk about the volume name again. The name of the first volume is Genesis. Not only because Khaos has just been opened up, but also because Ryan wants to create the spiritual world, and even more because I have used some content from the Bible Genesis. Of course, as my first contract, it is also very memorable. As for the second volume, I named it Reincarnation. I know some people will definitely say that this is the protagonist trying to establish reincarnation or something. After all, this operation is terrible. But actually, this is really not the reason why I chose this name, at least not the main reason. And in terms of specific content, considering that the content of mythology is only that much, and the further back, the more human it becomes. So I tried my best to make some arrangements in the front, so that there would be something to write about later, instead of just a bunch of dispensable passers-by except for the protagonist and Zeus. What's more, if nothing unexpected happens, by the time Zeus becomes the king of gods, the original mythological trajectory will be almost overtaken by the protagonist. How much of it is still the original, I can't say. It will be determined by the situation at that time. Okay, that's all for the reflections. The next chapter will be posted in half an hour. To be honest, for a newbie writing a book, it really takes more time to revise the text than to write it. Once the manuscript is finished, it is saved and dare not be published without revising it twice. Above. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 25, The New King. No one dared to look at Cronus at this moment. Even Hyperion and Oceanus, who had once had thoughts about the position of God-King, remained silent at this moment. Auranus's curse before leaving was clearly heard by the gods. If it were any other curse, they wouldn't take it to heart, but the one just now was different. Not only because of the object of the curse, but also because it reminded them of the warning given by the being who was considered the god of prophecy in the underworld hundreds of years ago. If you thrive by this, you will perish by this. Cronus used his son to seek his father and used swords to gain the throne. Does this also mean that he will be rebelled by his own children and lose his royal power by force? No one knows, but no one can guarantee that this won't happen. You must know that the position of God-King of the Heavenly Father was given by the world, so simple force cannot replace him. But if Cronus becomes the God-King, the throne gained through strength will no longer be endorsed by the world. But no matter what, time does not stop because of the silence of the gods. When no god in the world raised any objection to Cronus' position as the God-King, power began to shift to him. Since there is no orthodox God-King recognized by the world, a leader recognized by the gods is barely feasible. If no one challenges Cronus within 500 years, he will be the second-generation God-King of Khaos. During this period, although he could not fully enjoy the authority of the God-King, the powerful power had begun to be transferred to him. Children, you have one. In the silence, the scarred Earth Mother came from a distance. In previous battles, she had suffered no less injuries than her own children. It's just that she didn't appear on the frontal battlefield, but constantly mobilized the power of the Earth to block the pressing sky. She also heard the curse just now, but she still acted like she didn't hear it. At such a moment, she didn't want to worry about the unknown future. Hearing this, all the gods reacted. They no longer had a sullen face, but began to celebrate the victory and Cronus' ascension to the throne. No matter what they thought in their hearts, facing Cronus, the strongest among the Titans and holding a high-level artifact, they all expressed their recognition of his position as the God-King. You're right, Mother. We should have a banquet to celebrate today's victory. Listening to the congratulations of the gods, Cronus forced a smile and said to the Titans, "But I think we should deal with one more thing first, Cronus." Suddenly, Mnemosyne on the side spoke. There was still blood all over her body, and the wounds slowly healed under the influence of divine power. She came from a pothole in the distance that she had made herself. But at this moment, Mnemosyne seemed to have forgotten the pain. She looked at her former brother and current eldest brother with anger on her face. That god of prophecy, that thief. He stole my memory priesthood. You all felt it. At the beginning of the battle, Khaos consciousness revealed his disguise. He is the god of spirituality, and he did things that made the world angry. We should punish him, she said. In Hades, where the consciousness of the world informs the gods. Yes, before celebrating victory, we should punish a sinner. Iapetus also supported. He thought everyone would think so. After all, it was Rhine's prophecy that made everyone suffer. But unexpectedly, no one answered his words after him, and everyone looked a little embarrassed. Ahem, my brother. Hyperion said, the consciousness of the world only appeared 7 days ago. Even if we punish him now, we will not get a reward. Yes, Khaos's consciousness is always so rigid. When his offense to the world is completed, the world's reward for him will be cancelled. Tessis also echoed. The eldest sister of the Titans rarely talks. But what about my priesthood? Mnemosyne was a little confused. Is there any need to discuss punishing a weak prophetic god? Even if there is no reward from the world, it would be better to simply use him to embody the majesty of the new divine court. I want him to be my god. The priesthood cannot be transferred, but it can be borrowed between the main god and the subordinate god for a long time. The corners of Cronus' mouth twitched. The priesthood cannot be transferred, which is what he thought at the beginning. But he is not as simple as we thought, Mnemosyne. The Lord of the Ocean seemed not to want to beat around the bush. He said directly to his sister, just 7 days ago, when we were fighting Father God, the 2 people from the land of eternal night went to Hades. The divine power of the 2 of you is too weak, so you cannot sense it. On the previous god's birthday, the 2 primitive ancient gods used their origin to speed up the birth of the new god. It is obvious that they are looking for trouble with the spiritual god. Hearing this, Iapetus said no more. He understood what his brother meant. If the 2 primitive gods took action personally, or Ryan had been thrown into the abyss and accepted the punishment of the will of the world, then they would not be able to find anyone in the past. Either the other party used some method to make the 2 gods of the Dark Night return without success. Then there is nothing they can do. Including Gaia, all the gods here now combined are not enough for the Lord of Darkness to defeat with one hand. After all, the opponent's power can compete with Uranus at his peak, and what they faced before was only the Heavenly Father whose power was greatly damaged, less than 30% to 50% of his peak power. That's it. Looking at his somewhat unwilling sister, Cronus didn't want to delay any longer. If possible, he wanted to attack the guy who swallowed his origin more than anyone else, but now he could only give up. Not to mention the other party's always mysterious style, and the means to make the original god give in, the other party's prophecy alone made him sleepless. He understood his father now. Heavenly Father has treated the Titans as toys countless times, but he has never touched Ryan once. This is the deterrent brought by the mysterious fate. The other Titans didn't care. After all, they didn't ask Ryan for a prophecy, but Cronus was different. He began to regretting why he asked Ryan about his future before. If he didn't know, at least he wouldn't be in the dilemma he is now. Let's go back to Odil's mountain. Mother's creations are always so delicious. His mood became a bit gloomy again, and the future god king who should have been in high spirits at this moment reluctantly made himself look happy and then flew towards the sacred mountain first. Let's go, let's talk about the priesthood later. After looking at her sister, Rhea, the only one who is somewhat aware of Cronus' state, also said. Seeing everyone saying this, Mnemosyne had no choice but to bear it and chose to fly to the sacred mountain with the Titans. She didn't dare to act on her own. Even the former Ryan was the god of time with level 9 divine power, but he could fight more than she, the god of language and letters with level 8 divine power. The gods left one after another. When the war between gods ended, the earth returned to peace. As time goes by, it slowly recovers from the damage it suffered. Half a day later, The banquet to celebrate the new king's accession to the throne began on Odil's mountain. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 26 Artifact. Shui Sha. In the spiritual world, Ryan put the last touch on his painting and looked at his work with satisfaction. The God King was pierced through the chest, but his expression did not look ferocious. He whispered softly, as if teaching principles to his children. Opposite him, the sword-wielding god of time and space had a face full of shock and anger, and the titans had different expressions. At the bottom of the picture, Ryan also thoughtfully painted cracks in the earth like human faces, which are the Earth Mother who has been paying attention. The next moment, although Khaos was very reluctant, the source of art and painting was still connected to the spiritual world. Unlike stars, stars have entities, so it is impossible for Ryan to swallow up all the star power of Khaos. But now, if the god who symbolizes painting does not appear within 300 years, this god will never be born in Khaos in the future. It cannot be said that there may be a god of painting born who has superb painting skills but no creativity at all. After sensing the source of absorption, Ryan once again confirmed that it was difficult for him to absorb the source power related to matter. This was determined by his original origin. Unless one day in the future, he can stand in the realm above the great divine power and completely understand the root of all things. In addition to painting, art and inspiration also came together. The former is stronger and can last for 1,000 years before being sucked dry. As for the latter, pure inspiration and memory are the same as Ryan's. You are the first painting in the world, and the origin of painting should favor you. You are the first work of art in the world, and art regards you as its origin. You have recorded the end of the era, and history should also have you have won, he said. Then the source power in the spiritual world began to converge on the scroll. Not surprisingly, 1,000 years later, when all the origins related to Khaos are exhausted, an artifact will be born. With one step forward, Ryan's figure disappeared into the palace. The next moment, he appeared out of thin air in the hollow belly of the mountain at his feet. There is nothing superfluous here, only a small pool placed in the middle, with a spring spraying liquid that seems to be virtual yet solid. Ryan casually put Death of the God King into the pool and let it breed on its own. The pool is the manifestation of the source of the spiritual world, and several other artifacts that have not yet been born are contained in it. Ryan looked towards the pool. Located around the spring are 3 transformed oracle stone slabs. Is this the creation artifact? In essence, it is a holy object that is equal to the great divine power. Even in the records of later generations, there are few such powerful creations in the world of Khaos. With some emotion, Ryan knew that Gaia had not realized the true power of these 3 oracle tablets before. Unlike other artifacts, the oracle tablets are rough embryos, and only when they are used will the power contained within them gradually be revealed. In the original history, Themis used it to write laws, so she was respected by the gods, and the jealous Hera never dared to offend her. The wise Métis created hydrology with the help of it, so her children were once the destined god kings. But now they are the property of the spirit world. Even if the last stone slab is not perfect yet, their power is still extraordinary. After seeing the slowly changing oracles, Ryan's eyes turned to their surroundings. 3 inferior embryos are surrounding them, which are artifacts spontaneously conceived in the spiritual world. Time, space, and life. Unfortunately, the source power of space is still too little. After all, I have not obtained the corresponding priesthood before. Ryan shook his head. Although the 3 embryos with undetermined shapes were all powerful, the space one among them was obviously not as good as the other 2, because the source of space in the spiritual world only came from Cronus. But even so, when it is born, it will at least be a high-level artifact, which is enough to make any god crazy. The other 2, the part of time, integrates the time origin and sequence of Cronus, as well as the past, present, and future symbolized by history, calendar, and prophecy. It is very close to the creation artifact, but still a little short of it. Lane estimated that it would take another 1 or 2 epochs of time to make up for its shortcomings. As for the embryo of life, it was conceived with most of the life source power taken from the life Aquarius. The complete life Aquarius will gradually become stronger with the prosperity of Khaos. It should have become a creation artifact symbolizing the beginning of all things, but having lost most of its origin, it is destined to be the same as the one conceived in the spiritual world. It is also impossible to break through the last step, unless in the future they can gain power outside the realm of life. Apart from these, what is left in the pool are the same ordinary artifacts scattered in the corners as the newly placed scrolls. Some of them were conceived by the concept of moon and some were born by the source of change. They are still powerful in their own areas, but the level of power is far worse than the previous ones. As for the lower-level sub-artifacts, those kinds of products cast the day after tomorrow will never appear in the spiritual world at this time. Any true artifact contains the corresponding original power. Even powerful gods will not ignore their existence. If I hadn't opened up the spiritual world, I wouldn't have been able to obtain so many artifacts at once. After all, only the world can directly use source power to breed artifacts. However, our new God King is afraid that he would like to kill me. With a chuckle, Ryan looked at the embryo conceived by the source of time and space again, and then returned directly to the previous palace. There was nothing in the space-time mirror suspended in midair. At that moment, the Earth Mother and the Titans had returned to Mount Otis. Ryan did not continue to spy on their movements. After all, the battle was over, and the level 11 divine power was not enough to prevent his prying eyes from being discovered. But he knew without observation that the Titans were going to the sacred mountain to celebrate their achievements, and perhaps there was some distribution of rights involved. Although Cronus is the second generation of God Kings, he is also the generation of God Kings with the weakest divine power. Unlike Zeus, he did not have a series of heirs and lovers to consolidate the divine court for him. Unlike the Heavenly Father, he does not have the supreme power to suppress disobedience. Under his rule, Khaos will fall into an era of feudation that lasts for tens of thousands of years. The Titans are unrivaled in their respective fields, and the third generation of gods will also be born during this period. Now, because of Ryan, Kronos, who is short of resources, could not do anything unnecessary. If nothing unexpected happens, he will first settle down and be the Emperor of Zhou. It would be at least 1,000 years before he would try to do something. But he will send someone to find me, not only because of those 2 agreements, but also because he needs mortal things to strengthen his royal power. If you can't make the gods worship him, then it would be a good idea to let mortals who look like the gods respect him as king. What's more, creation itself is the behavior that Khaos prefers. Smiling silently, Ryan actually looked forward to creating life. The spiritual world is ultimately the world of spiritual life, and Khaos is the destination of all living things. The seed that gives a creature a soul. When the soul ages and dies, everything about it will return to the spiritual world. This is what Ryan wants, a way to continuously absorb the power of Khaos. And faith. Feeling the meager power coming from the life in the spiritual world, Ryan looked a little strange. First, Cronus was cut, and now Zeus also suffered. Regarding this kind of unexpected good thing, Ryan decisively said, if you can come more. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 27, New Era. On Odil's mountain, everything was just as Ryan expected. The banquet at Kailash lasted for 3 months. Except for Cronus, even Amosine put aside the unhappiness in her heart and enjoyed the long-lost free time. They left everything behind, and for the first time in their lives, they had no one to restrain them. It's a pity that there's no wine in the world at this time, so the gods can't get drunk. 3 months later, The banquet is coming to an end. As early as the first month passed, the Earth Mother had gone into hiding under the sacred mountain to recuperate her ravaged origin, so at this time only the Titan brothers were still having a banquet on the sacred mountain. But as time went by, the atmosphere became a little more subtle. It is undisputed that Cronus would become the God King. But the former God King regarded the gods as servants, which was unacceptable to the gods. Just because Uranus can do it doesn't mean Cronus can do it too. He did not have the power of the Heavenly Father, so the Titans could not help but have their own little thoughts. Especially Oceanus and Hyperion. One of them is the original eldest son, and the other holds the powerful sun priesthood. Even if they cannot become god kings, they still want to become kings in their own fields. Finally, in the delicate atmosphere, Oceanus was the first to get up. He looked at his former younger brother, now his brother. Because of his sudden behavior, the Titans all paid attention to him. Seeing this, Cronus remained calm, but his gloomy mood added a bit of panic. Now is no longer the time to fight before. The power that Rhea helped him borrow from the past has been lost, and the power of the God King has just been gathered. Now his power is weaker than ever. If he fought with someone at this time, he would have to seek Rhea's help, but this would only further expose his problems. My brother, do you have anything to say to me? On such a celebratory day, I will give your request serious consideration. Cronus tried his best to act gentle and dignified. He didn't even call his former eldest brother, younger brother. You are worrying too much, Cronus. I am not here to oppose you. The Lord of the Ocean shook his head. He could feel that something was wrong with Cronus' mood, but he didn't think that the other person was afraid of him. In his mind, Cronus just didn't want to openly confront him. After all, as the Lord of the Outer Sea and the river around the world, even if Cronus is stronger than him, as long as he hides in the sea, the other party can't do anything to him. But he had no intention of challenging Cronus' throne. After all, even if the other party can't do anything to him, the other Titans will never surrender to him. In fact, except for Rhea, who knew the inside story, the Titans had already recognized Cronus' power. But recognition is recognition. They are not willing to bow their knees in front of the new God King as they serve the Heavenly Father. You have proven your strength, Cronus. I am no match for you, he said. I just want to say goodbye to you. After all, I may rarely come here again. I want to return to the sea. That's where I should be. With that said, Oceanus waved to his sister. Tessis hesitated for a moment, but looking at her brother, she walked forward together. I'll leave Mount O'Deals to you. I'm going to be my uncle's neighbor. I wish you a speedy recovery, Mother Goddess. I also wish you eternal kingship, Cronus. After saying goodbye at last, Oceanus did not wait for a response, but picked up his sister and flew away from the sacred mountain. He was not afraid of Cronus becoming ruthless. He is not the father, and he does not have the power of one against many. If he dared to attack him, Oceanus believed that his brothers would not stand by and watch. Watching the Lord of the Ocean and the goddess of raw water leave, Cronus's expression was a little stiff, but it soon returned to normal. At least it's not the worst outcome. Even if there is no lack of origin, he actually doesn't expect his brothers to bow to him. After trying to calm down, Cronus was about to say something to lighten the atmosphere, but Thea and Hyperion stood up immediately, making it difficult for him to maintain his expression. After God Lord Ocean left, he had realized that he could not make these brothers surrender. So he was prepared to give involuntarily, rather than being forced by the gods. But obviously, the sun god did not intend to give him this opportunity. Haha, my newly enthroned majesty, just like the eldest brother and eldest sister, we are also preparing to leave. After all, the sun is not as warm as the holy mountain. I still prefer it there. Hyperion couldn't help but feel a little happy when he looked at his former brother, who looked a little ugly. You have done all your tricks and deceived your father from the beginning, but so what? Even if you sit on the throne of God King, no one will really surrender to you. I think you won't force us to stay with you like my father once did. Hyperion said with a smile, as if he really respected the God King in front of him. That kind of cruel behavior is not what a God King should do. Of course, you are right,
Cronus said coldly.
Among the brothers, Hyperion has always been the most ambitious. Perhaps due to the influence of the priesthood, the son is born with a thirst for power. Then go back to your son. Since you like it there so much, just stay up there forever. Haha, of course. As the center of the starry sky, I should stay there. With a chuckle, Hyperion didn't take the God King's words seriously. The earth belongs to the mother goddess and the mountain god, the ocean belongs to the two sea gods, and the starry sky belongs to him. He was curious, what was left of Cronus as the God King? Let's go, Thea. I wish you a speedy recovery, mother. And I wish you eternal kingship, my dear brother. The sun god left with the god of light and vision, and the mountain suddenly became quite empty. Seeing this, the remaining titans looked at each other. They finally stood up one by one and said goodbye to Cronus. Phoebe and Khaos went to the sky together. As the gods of celestial bodies and light bodies, they would be neighbors with Hyperion. Themis did not leave explicitly, but she said she wanted to go to the earth to walk around. After all, she had been restrained on the sacred mountain for too long. Mnemosyne still held a grudge against Ryan, and she wanted to try to visit Lady Night to find out what happened to Ryan. She didn't dare to go directly to the underworld to confirm. After all, she knew very well how weak her power was. In the end, only Rhea, Khaos, and Iapetus remained. The weather was erratic, so Khaos stayed here and used the sacred mountain as his foothold. Rhea has always been close to Cronus under the influence of authority, so she doesn't plan to leave. As for Iapetus, he simply felt that he was too weak and simply stayed on the mountain. You are welcome to stay. I am not a father. You can do whatever you want here. After forcing a smile, Cronus didn't care if his frustration was noticed. Today's events have disgraced the new king, but there is nothing he can do about it. You just need time, Cronus. Rhea comforted her brother. It will be different when you fully control the power of the God King. I will work with you. Even if you are not as good as your father and mother, you can gradually establish your own kingship. Yes, you're right, Rhea. At least you're always by my side. Feeling somewhat relieved, Cronus arranged a place for Khaos and Iapetus to stay. When he was alone, he stood on the top of Odil's mountain, overlooking the earth. Under the night sky, the stars were dotted, and there was no sound on the empty land. In any case, the old era has passed, and the new era has arrived. At least, he is the God King now. All credit goes to the original author. If you're the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 28 Themis. 300 years have passed since the God King changed his throne, and the gods left. In the past 300 years, like a shackles being opened, visions of the birth of gods flashed through the world more than once, and the origin of Khaos also expanded. On the sea, after the Heavenly Father slept forever in the highest place, the Earth Mother gave birth to 5 children with her second son, the original sea god Pontos. They are Nereus, the friend of the sea, the wonder of the sea, Talmos, the wrath of the sea, Phorcys, the danger of the sea, Ketua, the power of the sea, Eurybia. After the birth of the 5 ocean gods, Pontos became much more active. He no longer sinks alone at the bottom of the sea, but often swims near the sea, and occasionally sets foot on land to meet Mother Earth. In terms of power, due to the birth of the air, Pontos' priesthood was partially divided. But with the birth of these gods, the concept of the sea expanded further. Between increases and decreases, the original Poseidon is still a powerful divine power, with level 17. Also on the sea, Oceanus, the god of the ocean, and Tessis, the goddess of raw water, also gave birth to a number of children. There are currently hundreds of them, and most of the sons of gods are river gods, collectively known as Potamus. The goddess represents a stream, river, pool, lake, or sea, or even an underground water body. Most of them are not real gods, but like crystal created by Ryan, They are regional gods with divine power level 0. Although he is as immortal as a god, his power is far inferior to that of a true god. Of course, there is also a true god among the ocean goddesses called Oceanides. The most well-known ones at present are the eldest sister of the ocean goddess, the goddess of oaths, Styx, and her sister, the goddess of fame, Clymene. From then on, the priesthood of the oath was delegated to the world, and Khaos no longer responded to the oath of the gods. However, correspondingly, the price of swearing to the Styx River was much smaller than originally. Different from the excitement on the sea, on the earth, and in the sky, except for Uriah, the god of mountains, who alone gave birth to some unknown mountain gods, only the eldest daughter of Khaos and Phoebe was born. Her name was Leto, the goddess of protection and lactation. Lane paid some attention to this. After all, her future children would be famous for generations to come. But all this has nothing to do with the Lord of the Spirit World. For 300 years, Ryan has been absorbing and digesting the original power day and night. The volume of the spiritual world has covered the entire underworld and has even begun to spread towards the ground. He thought that this boring life would continue for hundreds of years, but on this day, an unexpected visitor made Ryan stop his actions. Through the projection of the spiritual world into the material world, Ryan could clearly see that the Titans and the goddess of justice and law, Themis, were there. Reaching out his hand and touching his eyes, time and space fluctuated. Under Ryan's power, the past and the ever-changing future kept flashing before his eyes. Soon, he knew Themis's purpose. "Lyanna, go and bring her to me," Ryan said softly. "As you command, Your Highness."
Okay.
Themis has been wandering the earth for 300 years since leaving Mount Otis. Chaos in this world is very similar to the one in myth, but there are also many differences. Not to mention the ocean, the area of the Earth alone is more than 100 times larger than the Mediterranean area on the Earth, but the environment in most places seems wild and dangerous. And with the rise of the world's origin, the area of Khaos is also continuing to increase. With his mind sinking into the roots of the spiritual world, Ryan continued to digest different origins. This will be his main job for a long time to come. The two names of the sacred mountain and the two temples of the protagonist are all names borrowed from other places. By the way, I left a plot that I don't know if I will write in the future. As a name dropper, I have no choice but to borrow the wisdom of the ancients, even though they are from the West. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 30, Two Concealing Each Other. On Mount Odeals. After obtaining the Code of Creation from Ryan, Themis rushed towards the sacred mountain non-stop. Legislating for the world cannot be accomplished casually. A suitable priesthood, a sufficiently powerful carrier, and the authority of the God King, the custodian of the world, are all indispensable. However, Themis was not worried about her brother rejecting her request. After all, the power and position of the God King was not constant. Like Cronus, not to mention that the 500 years have not yet reached the time limit. Even if it does, his power as a God King will definitely not be comparable to that of his father. Despite Uranus's rebellious behavior, the fact that he created life through sexual intercourse is his greatest achievement as a God King. What's more, Cronus is still a usurper, and the divine power he obtains will only be lower. Now that he can complete the task of legislation under his own rule, this new God King absolutely desires it. 3 days later, Themis, who finally returned to the sacred mountain, immediately found her brother and told him her thoughts in detail. However, contrary to the expectations of the goddess of justice, although Cronus supported her legislation, he seemed to be more interested in the spiritual god. "So, you're saying that not only did he not make any demands of you, but he also promised to deal with the chaos and madness excluded by the law for you?"
Yes.
"I thought they would gather on the earth and form many dangerous Jedi. After all, I couldn't handle them. But since His Highness Ryan is interested in them, I agreed to hand them over to him." Some were confused as to what Cronus was focusing on, but Themis still answered. She guessed what Ryan must be up to, but she didn't care. It's just something she won't need, and keeping it will only cause trouble for herself. But Themis could see clearly that Cronus didn't think so. His resentment towards Ryan lasted for more than a day or two. Things are not that simple. There must be something you don't know. Ryan will definitely gain something in this process. He is not that kind of person. With a cold snort, Cronus looked a little unhappy. 300 years have passed. Although the power brought by his priesthood is insignificant, the power of the God King that has been condensed for the most part still gives him a powerful power of level 17. But even so, every time he thought of his lost origin, Cronus deeply regretted the decision he made. The level of divine power is the level of divine power, and the actual combat power is the actual combat power. Without most of the time and space priests, Cronus' strength is not as good as before even if his divine power level is the same. What's more, if the time and space priesthood is still complete, his current divine power can be one level higher. In the field of powerful divine power, the gap between levels is not comparable to those with medium divine power. On the other side, looking at Cronus' expression, Themis clearly had some misunderstanding. She thought the other party was angry with Ryan's prediction. But the goddess of justice would not act out of anger, so she reminded. I know, Cronus. Because of His Highness Ryan's prophecy, you and my brothers are dissatisfied with him. But you have to know that, at least for you, you not only took the initiative to ask for the prophecy from him, but you also owe him 2 requests. You swore to the world that you would complete them. When you fully inherit the throne of God King 200 years later, you can no longer delay it. Cronus was speechless. He once again mentally scolded Khaos for his rigid instincts. It is obvious that the spiritual god has done something that makes the world dissatisfied, and it is obvious that the other party has usurped his origin, but to the world, it is always right to do things and not people. Even if it instinctively resents Ryan for stealing his power, it will not give up its pledge to Cronus because of this. I will, but there's still 200 years, right? In the end, Cronus accepted the fact that he had to do things for Ryan, and he turned to ask another question. You said he opened up an interface called Spirit World, and there are many special creatures in it. Yes. Themis nodded and said, I was just about to tell you. After he returns the life face, I plan to visit the Mother Goddess and create some new life on the earth. Speaking of new lives, I've seen some. Cronus frowned slightly and recalled. About 100 years ago, Kur, the god of destruction, represented their 8 gods who have always lived in the underworld and came to this sacred mountain to meet me. At that time, he was surrounded by some beings called eternal night nymphs. They were not gods, or even gods with power. According to him, they were the mother of night, given to him by the ancient god Nyx Waiter. Cronus actually glorified this process. Kur's purpose was not to represent the 8 gods in meeting the God King at all, but simply to show off in front of his new God King. In fact, most of the gods of chaos are still very emotional. The God King was still alone, but he was accompanied by his attendants. This greatly satisfied Kur's vanity and made Cronus secretly angry. But he had no choice. After all, according to Kur, he had a close relationship with his mother goddess, and the new God King would not dare to provoke a primitive god at this time. Of course, what Cronus didn't know was that the god of destruction also beautified the process of obtaining the night nymph. In his words, the 2 primitive ancient gods cared about them very much, but in fact, the 2 gods of the dark night had never met them. Erebus didn't care about the children who evolved from the original body at all, and Mizzi only gave them a few nymphs she created with soul embryos in name only. Among them, none of them were given divinity and transformed into demigods by Mizzi. It was not at all like what Kur said, a testimony of the closeness between their mother and son. Didn't Mother of Night go to His Highness Ryan before? Themis speculated. Maybe it was at that time that he and His Highness Nyx created new life together. Maybe, Cronus said, but since His Highness Nyx has accepted the existence of new life, I think there should be no problem with them. When the time comes, I will go with you to see the Mother Goddess. On the land of Khaos, there should be some people who know how to respect the God King. Frowning slightly, Themis was a little dissatisfied. Ryan created life in his own interface, but Kronos' first reaction was there might be something wrong with them. At least in her impression, Ryan didn't seem to have done anything to the Titans on his own initiative. You don't understand. Kronos shook his head, glanced at the face of the goddess of justice, and finally said nothing more. He didn't spread his wrong ideas around the world. If possible, he wished that no one would know about the shortcomings of his priesthood. That's it for now, Themis. By the time you finish drafting the code, I will probably have taken control of the position of God King. By then, I will support your actions in the name of God King. That couldn't be better. After nodding, Lady Justice still didn't tell Kronos anything about Ryan. For her, legislation is the top priority right now. The previous 300 years were not enough for her to understand all the loopholes in the laws of the world. Now, with the assistance of the Creation Code, she can have more in-depth contact with the rules of this world. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 33 Métis. 500 years have passed since Themis left the sacred mountain. Time on Khaos is so worthless, even after the first generation of humans appeared. It wasn't until at least the age of bronze men that the gods got used to counting time in terms of years instead of hundreds. 300 years ago, on Mount Odeals, Kronos truly became the God King. Driven by the oath, he announced the new rules of the sun and moon in the name of the God King, and the few remaining concepts related to the moon completely flowed into the spiritual world. As expected, the future moon goddess will have no control over anything except a huge luminous, celestial body of her own. Even the light emitted by the moon has no occult meaning except the name moonlight. Regarding the second oath, Kronos also declared Ryan's sovereignty over the elements and his qualifications to weave the web to control them. The power of the elements therefore flows to the spiritual world, but except for the fire element, the other elements are more superficial. Although there is no wind god yet, wind is subordinate to weather. Water, earth, light, darkness, etc. also have their respective gods. Only fire does not have one yet. So, no surprise, there will be a Vulcan in the future who cannot control the element of fire. And as Ryan fully accommodates the source power of fire element, he can further touch the real fire and take this ownerless natural priesthood into his palms. Perhaps in the future, when the eldest daughter of the God King is born, Khaos will still give birth to the god of fire, but she will simply be a god in charge of the burning of matter. From then on, spiritual fire can harm matter, but material fire cannot touch spirit. Therefore, in the context of spirituality, Lane defines fire as the original one. In addition, during the past 500 years, many supernatural phenomena have appeared in Khaos. The most well-known among them is Helios, the original sun god and the eldest son of Hyperion. On the day when this new god was born, the whole world could see the sun becoming 1,000 times more dazzling. The original priesthood of Sun was split into two, with the older one returning to the ancient god Titan and the younger one going to his children. Hyperion still represents the sun, but his eldest son represents the path of the sun. The original world of Khaos did not have sunrise or sunset, but now there is dusk and dawn. With the division of priesthoods, Hyperion, who was already close to divine power level 18, was also severely weakened and could only barely maintain a powerful level of divine power. But the divine power can be maintained and the priesthood can be divided, but the sun cannot become two. So Helios had just been born and immediately became the sun god without a sun. Without the celestial body corresponding to his priesthood, Helios still maintained the appearance of a young child even though he was born nearly 100 years ago. He has the sun priesthood with divine level 15, but like Ryan at the beginning, he is just a weak true god with weak divine power. This family drama of the Titans made the gods of Khaos laugh a lot. In addition, the second daughter of Khaos and Phoebe, the meteor goddess Asteria, was born. There is an unstable celestial body in the sky of Khaos. But what surprised Khaos was that his daughter only represented the celestial body itself. The light she emits does not even contain the slightest energy. She is obviously a kind of star. Excluding the small episodes in the sky, there are many gods born in the sea. Oceanus, in particular, was interested in having children. Hundreds more sons of gods and goddesses were born, many more rivers, lakes, and springs appeared on the land, and the power of the ocean god Lord began to expand. Although it is regarded as the river around the world, Oceanus actually controls the open sea and ocean currents. But as the number of children increased, friction began to arise between him and the ancient Poseidon. God's priesthood cannot be taken away, but this does not mean that those who have similar priesthood will not fight. Just like the land has been expanding, the oceans are actually getting bigger. The growing ocean has no innate ownership. Although the two sea gods have divided these sea areas equally before, it does not mean that they will always stay like this. The two ocean masters did not take action directly, but there were frequent conflicts between their children. But what dissatisfied God Lord Ocean was that although he had many heirs, there were only two true gods. Styx still lived in the underworld and did not come to serve his father at all. He had no choice but to continue to conceive children with Tessis, the goddess of raw water. In such an environment, the wisdom Métis in later mythology, now the god of hydrology, was born. Congratulations, my brother. You are a true god again. Your god line is getting stronger and stronger. In a palace on the far sea, the god of weather congratulated his brother, whom he had not seen for a long time. Since Themis built her temple on Mount Otis, soon palaces of all sizes were spread across Khaos. At least in terms of enjoyment, the gods of Khaos learned quickly. You're coming soon, aren't you? Khaos, I heard that you and Eurybia are getting together. Counting the days, your first child will be born soon. Oceanus smiled lightly, but Oceanus didn't seem too enthusiastic. On the side, Khaos looked a little embarrassed. He knew very well that Oceanus was expressing his dissatisfaction with him. After all, everyone now knows that Lord Ocean has a conflict with his uncle. Although neither of them took action directly, there had been no contact between the two parties for hundreds of years. At this time, Khaos chose the youngest daughter of the ancient Poseidon, which naturally made him very dissatisfied. I know there is a conflict between you and Pontos, Khaos said a little helplessly, but there is no need for you to fight each other. So which side are you on? Oceanos asked bluntly, ignoring the weather god's words. I will stay on Mount Odeals. I don't want to fight with Eurybius' relatives, but I won't fight with you either. Saying this, Khaos actually knew very well that for him who had not yet become a powerful god, it would not be a good thing to take any side. It had better be, my brother. After giving Khaos a slightly warning look, Oceanos turned around, looked at the gods who came to attend the banquet, and announced loudly, to celebrate the birth of my daughter, Métis, the god of water, let us start celebrating. Everyone here is a friend of the ocean god system. After the words fell, the atmosphere that was slightly stiff due to the two titans finally became cheerful. The gods said their blessings and began to enjoy the wine at the banquet. As soon as this drink spread from the sacred mountain appeared, it became the favorite thing of the gods. No banquet can be without them. Rumor has it that they actually originated from a god in the underworld, but no one cares about its origin. The gods only care about one thing, that is, wine can make them enjoy it, and that is enough. In front of the palace, the gods were celebrating, but somewhere they didn't see, in the spiritual world, a figure came silently to the back of the ocean temple. When the spiritual world began to spread toward the earth, Ryan did not choose the mainland first, but chose the more remote ocean. At this time, he was standing on the first level of the spiritual world, looking at the young baby on the bed outside with a somewhat hesitant expression. She is Métis, who was originally in charge of strategy, wisdom, thought, and hydrology, the first wife of the third-generation god King Zeus, and the mother of the goddess Athena. But now, She is just a weak baby in charge of hydrology. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 34 Move. Unlike the children born to the original gods, the children of the second-generation gods need to develop. They are no longer like their parents, who can reach adulthood in just half a day after birth. It can take as short as a few months or as long as it takes. Their growth rates are different. At the same time, the new gods no longer have inherently powerful powers. When the ancient Titans were born, they all had at least weak divine powers, but with the exception of a very few, most of these new gods grew up slowly from divine power level 1. Now, this is the situation with Métis in front of Ryan. Her newborn skin was as smooth as milk, and her pair of black and translucent eyes looked nothing like a newborn. But there is no doubt that it will take at least several decades before she can become an adult god. This is not only because the third generation of gods should be like this, but also because her origin is not powerful. When she was born, wisdom, thoughts, and strategies were automatically scattered across the world like the memory of the past, leaving her with only hydrology. But unlike Mnemosyne, the third generation of gods was not born with knowledge, so she would not realize that she should have these powers. Métis Athena. Maybe I should take her? Whispering softly, Ryan wasn't worried about being discovered. Oceanus and Theseus are indeed very strong, but as long as he doesn't appear next to them, it will be difficult for the other party to detect him. This is the absolute nature of divine power. When Ryan hides in history and is covered by the spiritual world, no one discovers his existence even if he is separated by a palace. Forget it. Although my destiny has been changed, before Zeus ascends the throne, I still hope that this world will be a little more familiar. And in the original trajectory, this goddess of wisdom doesn't seem to be that smart. Shaking his head, Ryan finally gave up his plan. Hertis's potential, if he brought it back to the spiritual world and carefully cultivated it, would be enough to carry some powerful priesthood. For example, knowledge. Its origin flows to the spiritual world every moment. Originally, the existence of the god of words could isolate Ryan from absorbing knowledge to a certain extent, but unfortunately, the oracle tablet contained a more orthodox source of words. In this case, if there is one more candidate to take charge of the priesthood, it will not only speed up the absorption of the spiritual world, but also bring a powerful subordinate to Ryan in the future. But in the end, he gave up the idea. A goddess of wisdom, but she cannot even understand her own safety. What is the difference between this so-called wisdom and the prophecy of Prometheus? In contrast, perhaps her daughter is better suited to be the voice of wisdom. Now that he had made his decision, Ryan stretched out his hand, and 3 multifaceted crystals appeared silently in front of him. The spiritual world has just begun to absorb the origins of the 3 major priesthoods, but this does not affect Ryan's ability to condense their corresponding priesthoods. Although they are still very weak now, as the spiritual world absorbs all the scattered origins, they will return to their due height. He stretched out his hand, and 3 crystals fell into the body of the baby girl in front of him. At the same time, Ryan's figure disappeared instantly. The next moment, Lord Ocean appeared directly next to the bed. He glanced left and right, but found nothing. The moment Ryan gave him the priesthood, he returned from history to the present. Oceanus immediately noticed something strange, but he failed to track Ryan's existence. What's wrong? After a while, Tessis also appeared here. The goddess was not in the temple before, but sensing her husband's sudden burst of divine power, she rushed back quickly. It's nothing. Maybe it's my imagination. Shaking his head, Oceanus prepared to go back. But when his eyes glanced at his daughter, his eyes suddenly paused. Is this the breath of wisdom, priesthood? Somewhat unsure, Oceanus picked up his daughter and felt the breath in her body carefully. But soon, he not only confirmed his previous induction, but also discovered strategy and thought. Métis was given other priesthoods by the world? Did you sense the aura of Khaos just now? Tessis also noticed something strange about his daughter. However, Khaos has never given any clergy to others other than gods. She instinctively thinks that this is a gift from the world. Maybe, but that's not important anymore. God Master Ocean was not sure, but he was indeed pleasantly surprised. Unlike Pontos eugenics, he is synonymous with casting a wide net. Among the children, only Styx has the priesthood that allows her to achieve medium divine power. The remaining Clymene and Métis, Fame and Hydrology make it difficult for them to even become weak divine powers. But now, with a wisdom, strategy, and thought, Métis is destined to become a powerful being like her eldest sister. At least moderate divine power, and in the distant future, it is even expected to be powerful, which is much more powerful than many ancient titans. My brother Iapetus once asked me for a wife. Although he did not ask for it, my daughter other than the true God is not enough to match his status. I originally intended to choose between Clymene and Métis, but now it seems that I don't need to choose. Oceanus sounded happy, and Theseus nodded in approval. Having more children, spreading the oceanic gods all over the world, and using in-laws to win over the gods was their plan from the beginning. The myths of later generations also prove his success. Unlike his brothers, apart from Rhea and Themis, Lord Ocean was the only ancient titan who still retained some power in the era of Zeus. I will talk to Clymene about this. As a goddess of fame, marrying a titan with a distinguished status is also in line with her priesthood, and she will be satisfied with it. As a good wife of Oceanus, Tessis took the initiative to accept this job. Okay, I hope she can give birth to a powerful god for my brother. In this way, we will have one more helper when we face my uncle in the future. Nodding to his wife, Oceanus stood up and headed to the front hall. His sudden departure must have caused a lot of speculation among the guests, but now he can happily tell them the good news. From today on, the name of Wisdom Métis will surely resound across the sea, and no one can criticize themselves anymore with only quantity. Styx is just an accident. Behind him, Tessis glanced at his daughter again, and then left the hall. She was patrolling the ocean currents, preparing to extract the essence from the sea area controlled by her husband, combine it with the priesthood, and give birth to an artifact. Although this primitive casting method is relatively ordinary and not as powerful as the Cyclops who have special talents in forging, it is still enough to serve as a symbol of the ocean god. Tethys is going to continue preparing for this. As for his daughter Métis, God is immortal, and she does not need to be taken care of all the time. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 35 Desire gives birth to love, and love gives birth to beauty. In the Ocean Temple, Ryan gave him the priesthood, and the next moment, he left the place with the help of the characteristics of the spiritual world. Except for the sacred mountain of Sinaia, the time and space of the spiritual world becomes more and more chaotic the further in. Levels above 3 are already deep in the spiritual world. There, if you take one step forward, you may be thousands of miles away in reality. Although only the first 2 levels of the spiritual world are currently fully constructed, this does not affect Ryan's ability to use the characteristics of other levels. So, in an instant, he came to the sea thousands of miles away. This is because the scope of the spiritual world in this world is too small. Otherwise, with the help of this method of movement named Spirit World Shuttle by Ryan, he could travel to both sides of the Earth in 10 minutes. When creatures are born on the Earth in the future, and my divine power has accumulated to level 16 or above, I can weaken the barrier between the surface of the spiritual world and the real world. At that time, beings with high natural inspiration can directly see the first level of the spiritual world. Some spiritual beings with deep obsessions or being respected by sacrifices can also stay in the shallower level of the spiritual world and survive in another way. Thinking secretly in his heart, Ryan looked back in the direction of Ocean Palace. It is rumored in later generations that a considerable part of Zeus's wisdom came from Métis, but now, Métis's priesthood was bestowed by Ryan. But I can't say for sure. Rather than saying that Zeus's wisdom comes from Attis, I believe that he just borrowed his name. How can it be so good to swallow a god and use her divine power? What's more, if you can deceive the goddess of wisdom, Zeus's rhetoric may not be inferior to Métis's wisdom. Shaking his head, Ryan followed the direction in his memory and walked to a place offshore. After working hard to digest the origin for 800 years in the spirit world, Ryan finally came out, but Ryan had no intention of going back immediately. At least, he was going to get something there.
Arrive.
7 days later, after crossing the long sea, Ryan came to a special sea surface. There are no winds and waves here, and the sea is as quiet as death. But when the sun shines on it, it has a divine beauty. Not far away, a layer of blood foam exuding desire and hatred floated there. This is the source of all the changes in this sea area. Even Pontos himself is not willing to come here. Because this is where Aurena's organs fell, which contains his hatred for the Titans and Pontos. In the future, Erinyes and Aphrodite will be born here. As the birthplace of the four gods, when the blood of the god king disappears, this place will also become a sacred sea.
Who are you?
This is the domain of the Lord of the Near Sea. Strange gods, tell me your name. Suddenly, with a slightly weird tone, a half-snake, half-fish monster appeared. She looked directly at Ryan, who was not far away, with alert eyes, but she did not take action casually. Because the divine aura on the other person's body told her that he was at least a god with medium divine power. As one of the 5 children of Pontus, she, like her brother and husband Phorcys, is a half-god and half-monster being. Together, they gave birth to many sea monsters, the most famous of which were the 3 Grey Sisters. They appear as old women, but the 3 of them share one eye and one tooth. They are in charge of viciousness, violence, and terror, respectively, but they are not true gods. They are just quasi-gods with power and immortality, just like those ocean goddesses without priesthood. Keto, I know you are in danger of the sea. Ryan didn't look at her, let alone answer her question. Compared to Eurybia, the power of the sea, and Nereus, the friend of the sea, Ceto and her brother were more like Cyclops and were disliked by the gods of chaos. There is no way. The god of cows always cares about his face. But I don't know you, strange gods. This is a sea area that has been turned into a restricted area by God the Father. All the gods know this. Keto's expression became more and more sinister, and she was more severely affected by instinct than a normal god. It's not important, Ryan said. An interesting idea suddenly came to his mind. The important thing is, do you want to change your appearance? Get rid of your current appearance, or at least have an appearance that is recognized by the gods. Ketua's increasingly ferocious face froze. Ryan's repeated incorrect answers made Ceto, who was controlled by animal nature to a certain extent, a little angry. She originally planned to follow her instinct and attack Ryan, but the words that followed immediately made her regain her sense. She had declared more than once that she did not care about appearance, but when the banquet of the gods turned her away, only she knew what she thought. What should I do? The voice suddenly became softer. Ryan could hear it, although this softness was still harsh. Without giving away, Ryan pointed at the blood foam in front of him. Drink them, of course, only in small portions. If you dare to drink it all, you will only serve as the mother body and give birth to 4 new gods. But if you only drink a few sips, you may get unexpected gains. Ketua hesitated. As the danger of the sea, she knew very well that this was the most dangerous place in the sea, and the source of the danger was the blood. She didn't know if she should believe this strange god's words, but she was too eager to change. It's up to you whether you want to drink it or not, but this may be your only chance. Stretching out his hand, Ryan took a spoonful of blood from the blood in front of him. Then his body flashed and disappeared silently on the sea. This was exactly why he came for this trip, but it was an accident that he met Ketua, etc. He quickly spoke out and watched Ryan disappear. Keto wanted him to speak more clearly. But Ryan obviously didn't have time to pay attention to her. He was just interested and reminded her casually just for fun. Damn it. Roaring angrily, but with a faint desire in his heart, Kito still focused on Shuema. For a long time, a look of struggle appeared on her ferocious face, but in the end, Kito's desire for beauty defeated her instinct. She no longer cared about the danger of the blood in front of her and started to drink it in large gulps. As the blood entered her belly, her appearance did change. At a certain moment, she stopped drinking and looked at her own shadow on the sea. A beautiful black-haired goddess appeared there. The congratulations of the gods kept ringing out, but Themis soon realized their embarrassing situation. After the legislation was over, the gods were supposed to come to the holy mountain, but due to the existence of the source of chaos here, including Cronus, they could only stand far away and did not dare to approach at all. Themis had no solution for this. She signaled to Cronus with her eyes that she was going to invite the gods to the palace behind Mount Odeals, where a celebration banquet had already been prepared. "Congratulations, Lady Themis." Just as he was about to speak, a familiar voice came. The goddess of justice turned around in surprise. She originally thought that the other party would wait for the gods to disperse before coming. Wherever he looked, space fluctuations came, and a young god in black appeared quietly in front of him, as if the source of chaos posed no threat to him. Several powerful gods in the distance frowned. With their strength, they could only detect the arrival a moment in advance. They had only seen this level of space-time power in Cronus. "It should be said, same joy, Your Highness Ryan." Smiling slightly, the goddess breathed a sigh of relief and pointed to the creation code beside her. 200 years overdue, it's time to return the property to its original owner. There are also these sources of chaos. If you don't come again, I don't know how to deal with them. Hearing this, many gods around who had never seen Ryan were curious about his identity and what it had to do with the goddess of law's artifact. The few who recognized Ryan's presence were also puzzled. The source of chaos is simply a poison to the gods born in this world. Ignoring the gods beside him, Ryan nodded to Themis. He stretched out his hand and the creation code immediately shrank and turned into the size of a normal book and fell into his palm. As soon as his fingers tapped on the spine of the book, a page fell from the artifact. A golden light flashed across the page, and the surrounding mist snakes immediately flowed into it like a whale sucking water, leaving no trace behind. Obviously, in the hands of the true owner of the artifact, it has shown more powerful power in the field of order. "Do you want to stay and attend my celebration party?" "No, I'm just here to take away these things that you can't handle. I've been looking forward to the source of chaos for a long time." Shaking his head, Ryan rejected Themis's invitation. He had no interest in attending the banquets of this era. Once the things were in hand, Ryan was ready to say goodbye. But the next moment, an inexplicable sense of oppression suddenly came, making the surrounding space solidify. This level of confinement actually has little effect on him. As long as he uses a little more force, Ryan can easily break it. But he didn't do that. He just turned slightly and looked at the source of power. As expected, where he could see, the sun god family stood there. The leader is none other than the Lord of the Sun, Hyperion. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 40 Judgment. As the sun god's unabashed divine power fluctuated, the originally lively atmosphere inside and outside the sacred mountain became solemn. The gods who were about to step forward also stopped. Although the fog snake had been eliminated, they were still unwilling to get involved in the obvious conflict in front of them. The character and ambition of the sun god are well known, and he has never been a sociable god. Except for his wife Thea, even his children feared him more than they respected him, so the gods naturally would not speak for him. Not to mention Ryan. Among the gods who knew him, most of them, except Themis, were happy to see someone take action against him. This god, who is suspected to be older than the original god, has never really taken action. Although the fate also makes the gods fear him, he always has no power to intuitively understand. Now that someone is willing to be the first person to test Ryan's strength, Even the ancient mountain god Uriah can't help but want to watch the show. Is something wrong? Under the gaze of the gods, facing the faint divine pressure from Hyperion, Ryan asked unhurriedly. With a calm tone and a calm expression, Ryan's attitude was clearly revealed. He didn't take the sun god seriously at all, or so it seemed. You know what I'm here for, Ryan. I went to Hades to look for you, but you didn't even dare to see me. Squinting his eyes slightly, Hyperion responded with stronger divine power in response to Ryan's indifference. Light and heat emerged around Ryan and rushed towards him. But soon he discovered that although his divine power kept flowing, they all disappeared at the edge of Ryan's clothes. No, it's not disappearing. Hyperion can feel that the power of the sun is still there and continues to move forward. The distance that was only a finger's width seemed to be stretched tens of millions of times. No matter how close one's own strength was, it was always just a little away from the opponent. Faced with this situation, the sun god glanced at the watching god king with his peripheral vision. This method is very similar to the application of space authority, but in his impression, Cronus is the god of time and space. But this is not important anymore. When the power of the two parties is transferred, Ryan's medium-level divine power is very obvious to him. There was some threat, but it was no more than that, which made Hyperion's determination a little firmer. Ryan, you should know my purpose very well. Thousands of years ago, you used your words to confuse the God King and asked for 3 conditions, thereby shamelessly stealing the concept of moon. Today, I am here to correct this mistake's come. In front of the gods, Hyperion still has to speak some reasons. Although all the ancient Titan gods who had actually experienced those years knew that he was in favor of it at that time, the sun god is very happy that Pluto's son can expand his authority, and he has not yet gained freedom and does not know that the moon will become his daughter in the future. But obviously, Hades never appeared, Selene was born, and Hyperion's mind changed. On the other side, facing the sun god's question, Ryan remained unmoved. Since the last time the other party went to Hades, he had somewhat expected this day. The other party wanted the moon in his hand, so why didn't he want a chicken to deter the gods? If it were other titans, given the difference in divine power levels, Ryan might not have any good ideas. But Hyperion chose to attack here and now. It can only be said that he personally laid the foundation for his own disaster. Feeling the laws of the world that had not completely dispersed around him, Ryan did not reply, but turned to look at Cronus. Is this what you mean? The god king on the side was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and then decisively denied it. No, this matter has nothing to do with me. The god king's promise is never compromised, although he really wanted to say yes, and then take down Ryan with Hyperion to see if he could get his origin of time and space back. But after thinking about it, Cronus gave up the idea. Now that Hyperion has taken the initiative to jump out, he can completely decide what happens next. If Ryan is not as scary as he thinks, I believe that his God Queen will definitely disobey the God King's order and take the initiative to do something that makes Cronus regretful. But if Ryan solves the problem caused by the sun god, he will never act rashly. Ryan, with a low drink, the sun god, who was ignored by Ryan, became angry again. He thought about many of the other parties' reactions, such as refusing to hand over the concept of moon and leaving directly in some way, or telling the gods about past agreements and prophecies, criticizing his capriciousness, but Hyperion only did not expect that the other parties simply ignored his existence. He wanted to take action directly, but the previous unsuccessful attempts still allowed the sun god to regain some sense. He calmed down and turned to look at Khaos, the god of weather. As a result, he was relieved, and the in-law gave him a confirming look. Because of the calendar, Khaos was somewhat dissatisfied with Ryan. It wouldn't be easy for him to take the initiative to stir up trouble, but he still dares to assist. Goddess of justice, my sister Themis, this greedy god first stole Mnemosyne's memory, and then conspired to take away my daughter's moon. I hope you can make a fair judgment and let he paid for his evil deeds. As if having a helper wasn't enough, Hyperion tried to get Themis on his side too. But obviously, the result was not what he thought. Gods and priests influence each other, at least among the native gods of Khaos. No one but the former Heavenly Father could make the Lord of Justice and Law go against his own instincts. What's more, even from a personal emotional point of view, Themis would not hesitate for a moment between the friend who lent the artifact and the sun god whom she hadn't seen for 1,000 years. The god of spirituality was born before us, and the ownership of memory is the decision of Khaos. As for the moon, that is an agreement witnessed by the mother goddess and us. Shaking her head, Themis had no thoughts of favoritism for her brothers. She turned to look at Ryan. If the other party needs her help, she doesn't mind standing on the side of justice. She may not be a match for the sun god as her divine power has not yet been broken through, but she is still sure of stopping Thea. Promise? He's just threatening us with a prophecy. With a sneer, Hyperion seemed to have forgotten how humble and embarrassed he was when the father was still there. As the leader of the star god lineage, he has long lost his past caution. Since you're not willing to help me, my sister, you'd better not stop me. Even if your priesthood has been improved, you are still not my opponent now. And you, Ryan. Hyperion looked over with a sneer. He was not going to endure it any longer. In the presence of the gods, I will tell you that power speaks louder than words. The next moment, the sky brightened. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek mythology, the spiritual dominator. Chapter 41, the power of creation code. After the words fell, Hyperion no longer hesitated. Vast divine power emerged from him, echoing with the celestial bodies in the starry sky. Now that he has made a decision, he doesn't plan to test it anymore. The big sun in the sky instantly exploded with heat 1,000 times. All intelligent creatures in Khaos could see that the sun that was originally hanging in the sky began to deviate from its original position and began to fall towards the earth from slow to fast. As the original sun god and a powerful titan, Hyperion does not need any sun chariot to drive this celestial body. In other words, using external objects to control the symbols of one's priesthood is itself a manifestation of insufficient strength. At the same time, the ancient titan gods Thea and Khaos also secretly wielded power. Although he didn't take action directly, light and sun are so compatible, and weather can also increase the power of the sun. The sun's rays became 10,000 times more intense, and it followed the pull of divine power and crashed straight into Ryan. With the power of one blow, with the combined efforts of the three titans, Hyperion's power rose by more than one level. Even the powerful divine powers present could not help but show solemn expressions. Although Hyperion's divine power fell back to the threshold of powerful divine power due to the birth of his eldest son, the attack of pulling the sun was enough to make any god here retreat. It's not too late for you to give up now. Hyperion finally laughed as he looked at Ryan on the sacred mountain. When the sun sets, you won't have a chance to regret it. Raising his eyebrows, Ryan had to admit that Thea and the sun god were indeed a perfect match. The two of them combined their efforts to reach the level of divine power level 19. If Hyperion hadn't dug his own grave, Ryan really wouldn't have dared to stay where he was. Of course, just because you can't take it doesn't mean you can't avoid it. The sun has faintly locked the space, but after all, it has no authority over time and space. As long as he detours through history and travels through time and space, Ryan can retreat calmly at any time. But he had a better solution than avoiding it. Nothing is absolute, Hyperion. Gods always have to pay for what they have done, and so does Uranus, and you are no exception. The lessons of history are right in front of you, but you have never learned anything. Shaking his head slightly, Ryan responded calmly. The next moment, the time around him was instantly distorted. Under the influence of authority, 1 second was stretched into more than a moment. This is just a basic application of the power of time. With enough time, he slowly raised his hand and the creation code floated in midair and turned the pages. In the blink of an eye, countless pages filled with spiritual texts were turned over, and finally, It stopped at the part describing the rules of the movement of celestial bodies. All things have their own order, and even a god king will be punished by the world if he abuses his power, let alone a sun god. And in charge of the code of creation, Ryan can make this kind of punishment more specific, more severe, and more efficient. Falling from the sun is actually not a big deal. As long as Hyperion controls it properly and doesn't let it hit the earth, the backlash he needs to endure is almost non-existent. But the sun god suppressed his eldest son for hundreds of years, letting the celestial bodies that should rise in the east and set in the west hang in the sky. This was his biggest violation of order. And on this sacred mountain where the legislation has just been completed, the remaining laws of this world will increase the power of the creation code, making those who deviate from the order double the punishment. The movement of the sun and the moon has its own rules. According to the code, each one goes his own way. As the words fell, Ryan's divine power flowed into the book in his hand and was absorbed by this powerful creation that was close to the creation artifact. The next moment, there was a crisp sound of chains shaking in the void, and the speed of the sun that was originally hitting Ryan suddenly slowed down, completely losing its initial momentum. Hyperion, the sun god, also discovered that as the sun deviated further from its original orbit, there was a stronger force preventing its movement. Although the sun is still approaching Ryan, the power of this attack has been reduced by half. Humph, it's just a little trick. With a cold snort, Hyperion glanced at the Mother of Light beside him. Thea understood this, and the two began to activate their divine power at the same time, causing the sun to set faster again. If Ryan was also a powerful god, or held a complete creation artifact, Hyperion would definitely turn around and leave. But now, even if he has to use nearly half of his strength to fight against the chain of laws, he still has enough confidence. However, until this moment, he had not realized the seriousness of the problem. Those who violate the rules are guilty. Those who are guilty should be punished. Following Ryan's second sentence, Hyperion didn't take it seriously at first, and then his expression suddenly changed. He was already prepared to resist the power of order again, but just now, he was horrified to find that his control over the sun was actually declining. Except for Khaos, no one can shake the authority of God, and Hyperion thought he was hallucinating. But then, he suddenly discovered the problem. Is it Helios? What did you do to him? Exclaiming in surprise, Hyperion understood that it was not Khaos who was reducing his divine power, but that there was something wrong with the sun. Since the birth of Helios, the sun has had two masters, one symbolizing its existence, and the other symbolizing its movement. But because of the oppression of the eldest son, the sun has never really moved since the day he was born. There is no doubt that this is a violation of the order of the world. But under normal circumstances, as the original sun, just a few hundred years would not be enough for Hyperion to pay the price, but under the influence of the creation code, the feedback of order was amplified. Hyperion's control of the sun began to flow to his children, and although the transfer was reversible, he was forced to stop the sun's descent. He can continue to attack as long as he has enough trust in Helios. But it is obvious that there is no trust between the Sun Father and his son. Although Helios usually obeyed his words, but thinking about it, he knew that Hyperion didn't believe this at all. For the sun god, who has personally performed the phrase, "Father is kind and son is filial," a daughter is just that. After all, there is no conflict in the priesthood. But his son Helios was already prepared. Okay, very good, Themis. Is this justice for you? Knowing that he could only return in vain today, Hyperion glared at his sister beside him. Since the oracle tablet was reshaped, it has become completely different from the original one. Even the several ancient gods on the sacred mountain who had seen the oracle did not recognize that the code of creation was the same stone slab. This originally belonged to His Highness Ryan. I just returned it to its original owner. After frowning, Themis explained. With his relationship with our Titan gods, he would be kind enough to lend you the artifact. With a cold snort, Hyperion had not yet been overwhelmed by anger. He glanced at Ryan one last time, turned around and left. No matter how cruel you say now, it will only become a joke, but today's matter is not over yet. Looking at Hyperion walking away, Ryan shook his head slightly. He could probably guess what the other person was thinking. But unfortunately, you can decide when to start, when to end. I have the final say. So the next moment, he stretched out his hand and took out a gift that had been there for 1,500 years. Regarding the question about the level of divine power yesterday, since everyone thinks it should appear in the narration instead of the dialogue, I will change it in accordance with public opinion. From now on, at least for an era, I will not mention the number in the dialogue between the gods of chaos. But I don't know why, after the modification, all the comments there were automatically deleted. Anyway, I didn't delete them. If there are any accidental comments, it's Chidian's fault. In addition, you all say that I can break chapters, but to be honest, new authors can't do it at all. I can't even control a chapter of 2,000 words. Like when I read a book by myself, chapter 2010 coins are just like stuck points, and I can't learn at all. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 40, the Sun Eater. 1,500 years ago, Uranus lost his position as God King, and Ryan opened up the spiritual world on that day. At the same time, the two gods of the Dark Night were inspired by the world, but in the end not only did they not conflict with Ryan, but after he gave away the soul embryo, each of them returned a gift. Nyx hung a star for Lion, and Erebus gave him the negative emotions of Uranus when he lost his throne. It is the hatred of a father for his son, the murderous intention of a king for rebellion. Ryan originally planned to mix it with other materials in the future and make it into an artifact specializing in the 12 Titans, but later, he had some new ideas. Targeting 12 gods. How can it be as powerful as targeting one god? Touching the creation code, with his left hand, the invisible order was rewritten. At this time, the sun in the sky has not yet returned to its position, and the punishment imposed on Hyperion by order is still being maintained. So Ryan mobilized his divine power and cleverly changed the method of punishment. The sun god in midair suddenly felt a shadow cast over his heart. He glanced around suspiciously, but found nothing. The next moment, standing in the distorted time, Ryan activated the source power of the spiritual world and slowly injected it into the ever-changing black energy in his hand. The chaos source power he just obtained also quickly transformed a little and was mixed into the group of negative emotions. Time passed slowly, and the creation entangled with energy and emotions in front of me had begun to take shape. It inherited its previous form, like a vague and uncertain mist. The mark that once belonged to Uranus was washed away, but only the hatred against the Titans remained. Not surprisingly, it will never be able to have normal rationality if it is in direct contact with the source. But Ryan didn't care. It's just a weapon. It doesn't require rationality. As long as it's easy to use, it's enough. After looking at it for a while, Ryan finally gave the thing in his hand new life in the name of the Lord of Spirituality. Icarpus, the nameless evil spirit in the spiritual world, the uncertain mist that eats light and heat, I give you life in the name of the Creator. As he finished speaking, the black mist in front of his eyes trembled at first, and then became more agile. Although the evil spirit is still irrational, it gives birth to chaotic instincts. The next moment, the newborn eclipse seemed to sense the Creator's thoughts, so it instantly merged into the surrounding space and rushed towards the distant, celestial body. The murderous intention of the God King was originally directed at the 12 Titans, but during the reshaping, Ryan focused it on the sun represented by Hyperion. When the scope is reduced, this power becomes more targeted and restrained. Moreover, this kind of created life is different from gods. They do not need to grow. Their birth is the peak. After being mixed with other powers, this emotion, which Ryan originally thought could create a creature comparable to a true god, went a step further and directly became an evil object close to medium divine power. Facing the sun, its power is even more powerful. It seems like a long time has passed, but in fact, in the distorted time, only a few seconds have passed in the outside world. So, as soon as the gods on Mount Odile saw Hyperion leaving in embarrassment, the next moment, the sky darkened. Hyperion, who had never seen an evil thing before, was in a trance, and the black mist had already surrounded him. The newly born evil spirit unfolded its illusory body and enveloped the originally huge body of light. The sun's light was thus obscured, and Khaos was plunged into darkness for the first time outside of night. What? No, stop it. He was startled for a moment, and then the tall and heroic sun god showed an expression of fear for the first time. When the evil spirits originating from the emotions of the previous god kings obscured the sun, he suddenly felt that the power of the sun had truly weakened. This is not a transfer from before, nor is it a temporary change. Hyperion clearly felt that part of the origin of the sun was being transformed into a force that opposed it. That force seemed to be born with a hatred of light and wanted to pull the world into eternal night. Even at this moment, the divine power that he had finally stabilized since the birth of his eldest son began to falter. If the source power of the sun continues to flow away, he may no longer be able to maintain his power. Get away!
Boomstreepje.
In fear, Hyperion did not worry about whether he would hurt himself. He mobilized his divine power and punched the sun. The black fog covering the surface of the sun was dispersed with one blow, and a little light was revealed, but before he could relax, in the blink of an eye, the black fog covered it again. Hyperion's attack cannot be said to be ineffective, but the evil object directly fused with the source of power itself has also gained incredible immortality at the expense of its sanity. Even if the power gap is huge, it is difficult to be defeated directly. Thea, help me. Listening to her husband's somewhat panicked call, the Mother of Light, although unlike the sun god, could clearly feel the changes in the power of the sun. She still took action without hesitation. The black mist that enveloped the sun expanded instantly. It was the light induced by the goddess. But in an instant, the black mist returned to normal. The light caused by Thea failed to penetrate its body, but was turned into food by the evil spirit. Obviously, the sun-god couple who encountered an evil thing for the first time did not know the correct way to deal with it. A simple divine bombardment is nothing more than giving the other party a massage. At the same time, as Hyperion took action with all his strength, the wavering of his divine power was also noticed by the gods who were watching. The second and third generation Titans only had some vague feelings, but the first generation Titans were different. As early as Ryan showed that emotion, they already felt something was wrong. Now that the sun god's priesthood has been shaken, their expressions have completely changed. Tez sis, did you feel it just now? I felt it. I'm not sure, but it gave me the feeling of facing God the Father. Responding to her husband's words in a deep voice, the goddess of water couldn't help clenching her fists. Thousands of years have passed, and she thought she had forgotten the past, but when the familiar breath came, she still couldn't control her emotions. Titan, the name for the timid. In order to separate themselves from the past, they changed the word to Titan and used it to represent courage and strength. But it turns out that before Heavenly Father, they are no different than they were thousands of years ago. It's not him. At most, it's just some of the power he left behind. Unlike his elder brother and sister, the light body goddess Fubai on the side looked quite dignified. Fubai always paid attention to dignity and longed for the respect and compliments of others, but even she herself didn't notice that her voice was trembling. Whether it is the two gods in charge of the ocean, his husband, the god of celestial bodies, or even Hyperion who is madly attacking the sun in the sky, they are all powerful gods, but Fubai is different. If the Mother of Light failed to advance because she accumulated divine power too slowly, then she simply had a limited priesthood. Perhaps in the original trajectory, Fubai once took charge of the oracle, obtained enlightenment through it, and took that crucial step. But now, she probably doesn't have this chance. Some power. If it were just like this, I wouldn't worry too much, but he can actually turn these powers into that kind of special life. Innate restraint, even though the power gap is so huge, it can make Hyperion helpless. It is truly a terrifying creation. On the side, The taciturn lord of the mountains pointed out the crux of the problem. Hopefully this is not replicable. Ponto's face also looked a little gloomy. Unlike his younger brother, who had nothing to do with it, he personally hid Auranus's organs at the bottom of the sea. He didn't know whether there was only one power targeting the 12 titans, but whether there was one targeting him was the real concern of the ancient Poseidon. A silent sense of oppression spread among the gods. This was the first time they had heard of a creation that could shake the origin of the priesthood. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 43, The End. Your Highness Ryan. On the sacred mountain, Rhea, who had been accompanying the god king, suddenly spoke. The eyes of the gods were attracted, and the time-lapse goddess spoke at this moment, obviously not only representing herself, but also expressing the wishes of the god king. Your Highness Ryan, your creation scares me, but the earth cannot live without the sun, just like the underworld cannot live without the light of the dark moon. If the day loses its light from now on, then everything in the world will wither. The collision in the sky continues, and the power of the sun god becomes more and more volatile. If it was just Hyperion himself who was weak, Rhea actually didn't want to say anything. Her words were obviously exaggerated, but feeling the turmoil in the source of the sun, the queen knew very well that the world under Cronus' rule was missing a celestial body, which was definitely something he could not accept. The sun god can pay the price, but nothing can happen to the sun. Unable to comment on the queen's proposal, Ryan looked at the god-king couple whose expressions changed slightly, but still did not insist on it. Putting aside the fact that he didn't actually have the ability to destroy the sun, even if he did, he couldn't think of any benefit from doing so. Hyperion deserves to be punished for his arrogance, but you are right, Khaos cannot live without this celestial body. So, under the witness of the gods, I can reluctantly make some concessions. If Hyperion is willing to apologize to me and swear to give up control of the sun for 500 years and let his own son run it for him, then I can forgive him for his actions. The corner of his mouth twitched, and Cronus next to him didn't know what to say to Ryan's concession. It's not forever, just 500 years, which seems very broad, but the God King doesn't even have to think about it. After experiencing true freedom, Helios will never be willing to continue to accept the control of his father. Maybe a fight between father and son will take place in the future, but this has nothing to do with the God King. Even in his heart, Cronus is quite happy to see this scene happen. In the past, the God King ordered not to leave the sacred mountain, but if he could capture the starry sky, he would have a territory he could control. Dear sun god, I guess you heard it too. Now that he had received the answer, the God King no longer hesitated. He looked to the sky and said to Hyperion, "As the Lord of the spiritual world said, you should pay the price for your actions. The movement of celestial bodies has its own rules. Rising in the east and setting in the west is the course of the sun. Now, it is time for my nephew and you to take charge of the starry sky together." After the words fell, the gods present also looked towards the sky. If Ryan insists on destroying the sun, even if they are not close to Hyperion, they cannot sit back and watch this happen. But if it were just a family dispute involving the sun god, that would be a different matter. In the sky, listening to the sounds coming from the earth, Hyperion punched out unwillingly. But looking at the tearing and closing of eclipse, he finally succumbed. He didn't know if there was any limit to this monster's transformation of the sun's origin, but if it continued like this, he might become the second god in Khaos to lose his powerful power. Stopping his attack, Hyperion took a deep breath. He was silent for a while, trying to force a smile on his face, but he failed in the end. "Yes, you're right. Your Highness Ryan, I apologize to you for my previous behavior. You have undisputed sovereignty over Moon. This is an agreement witnessed by the Mother Goddess and us." Nodding, looking at the stiff face of the sun god, Ryan still had no expression. Hyperion's cheek twitched. He knew what the other party wanted, so he looked at Ryan and said word by word, I swear to the river Styx that in the next 500 years, my eldest son will run the sun on my behalf. This is the punishment I deserve. The next moment, a wave of law came here. This was a spontaneous feedback from Styx priest far away in the underworld. She witnessed the oath of the sun god. Very good. Seeing this, Ryan was finally satisfied. Come back, Eclipse. He waved in the direction of the sun and called out to his creation. Although the evil spirit's consciousness is chaotic and disorderly, it still cannot resist the call of the creator. When it left the sun, as an immortal spirit, it disintegrated directly and returned to Ryan in a scattered state. The darkness is over and the sun shines on the earth again. Nothing seems to have changed and everything seems to have changed. It's just a lesson. In the sunshine, Ryan closed the creation code, glanced at the gods with a smile, and then looked at the embarrassed figure in the sky. But if there is a next time, it will be more than a lesson. His face turned dark, but when he saw the black mist wandering around Ryan, Hyperion did not say a word. He turned and walked away, followed closely by Thea and Selene, who was silent the entire time. The young moon goddess seemed a little frightened. She had thought that her father's trip would not be successful, but she did not expect that it would end like this. She looked at her Aunt Fu-Bai out of the corner of her eye. This Titan's priesthood is also not strong, but her husband Khaos, as the god of lightless celestial bodies, has even touched a little dark realm. Even among powerful gods, his power is by no means ordinary. Moon Goddess had some thoughts again, but unfortunately, she thought about all the gods of chaos and could not think of any powerful god who had a close relationship with her father. The sun god family left, and around the sacred mountain, the expressions of the gods varied. Some are worried, some are panicked, some are indifferent, some are respectful, and some are fearful. But the same thing is that they all silently included Ryan in the category of people who should not be messed with. Although they knew very well that the act of eroding the origin of the priesthood was never as easy as Ryan showed, no one wanted to experience this kind of thing personally. And Ryan, who was under the attention of the gods, could not help but feel a little happy when he felt the power of solar eclipse on the evil spirit. It wasn't that he didn't want the first solar eclipse in Khaos to last longer until Hyperion's divine power completely declined, but Ryan knew that if it continued, it would be easy for the other party to see some clues. The origin of the sun was indeed shaken, but it was actually the will of Khaos himself. Eclipse is regarded by the world as a new god born from the emotions of the previous god kings, and solar eclipse is its priesthood. Therefore, the previous flow of origin is actually more similar to the split of the priesthood when the new god is born, but Ryan affects the expression of this process with the help of artifacts. If we really want to compare power, even if there is a restraint relationship, it is difficult for evil spirits to cross the two levels of divine power and truly threaten the sun god. However, after this time, after the concept of solar eclipse it captured was taken over, absorbed, and digested by the spiritual world, it could be integrated with eclipse again. With medium divine power and double restraint buffs, it is a true sun nemesis. Now that the farce is over, I won't disturb you all. I'm sorry to interrupt your celebration party. Ryan said the latter sentence to the goddess of law. Themis shook her head when she heard this. She didn't care about this at all. Seeing that Ryan was about to leave, all the gods present paid tribute to him no matter what they were thinking. Ryan nodded in response, and then the power of space emerged, and his body gradually disappeared. Before leaving, Ryan glanced at the weather god on the mountain. There is nothing wrong with Thea turning toward her husband, but he could see Khaos mobilizing the divine power to help. However, he has done enough today, and there will be a more suitable person to punish him in the future. Ryan left, and as the two protagonists of the previous conflict left one after another, the atmosphere in the scene also relaxed. Today's scene made many new gods present know this ancient existence who lives in the underworld. Even the first-generation Titans have different thoughts at the moment. Oceanus couldn't help but start to think about whether he had the chance to turn Ryan into his relative. And Khaos was already regretting that he shouldn't have helped just now. As for Cronus, apart from intervening in the middle, this god king has not shown much else, as if everything was as he expected. But as Ryan said, the farce is over, so he is no longer silent. Everyone, the God King said loudly, it was just an accident before. Now that the problem has been solved, please move to my palace and enjoy the feast I have prepared for you. Although there was an episode at the celebration banquet prepared for the success of the legislation, to the God King, neither side of the conflict was a good person, and he would be happy whoever lost. Now, of course, it is time for the banquet to officially begin. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 44, Evil Object. Half a day later, Ryan returned to the core of the spiritual world. The sacred mountain of Sinai is as peaceful as ever. Except for Ryan and the first-generation spiritual angels he created, basically no life can come close to it. The seven-quarter moon casts moonlight, and the scene here is somewhat similar to the land of eternal night. The realm of Lady Night is different from that of the Lord of Darkness. Eternal night does not mean there is no light. Evil spirit, it would be more appropriate to call it an evil thing. Although it is only a pure spirit body, this construction method that directly combines with the source power seems to be not only applicable to spirit bodies. After casually dismissing Lyanna, who came to greet her, Ryan sat in the Temple of Arath, looking at the invisible and erratic eclipse, feeling a little surprised in his heart. This kind of creation that has great power and can be made quickly is really easy to use. Other gods cannot do this, because the existence that is directly integrated with the source power has no wisdom, and their thoughts are completely chaotic and crazy. Even the master, who created them, has difficulty controlling their behavior. But Ryan is different. As the de facto master of source power and the pioneer as for the end and death, humans cannot imagine things beyond their understanding, and the same is naturally true for God. Faced with Iapetus' doubts, Lyanna said calmly, "Before the Lord's authority to restrain spiritual life, it is not that no life with consciousness was born. This is the case with plants. Just because you cannot detect their hazy thoughts does not mean that they do not exist, but this weak thinking is not enough to form a soul. Just like plants can be destroyed, thinking life can also die. In this world, only gods are immortal. Unless the gods cut off part of their divinity, all mortal things will eventually die. This is also destined by fate. Ending. What about the soul?" After a moment of silence, the god of speech keenly discovered the problem. The body of life can die, so wouldn't their souls die? Of course it does, but it's slower. Lyanna had already anticipated the ignorance of outside gods, so she continued to explain. In this world, matter manifests more easily than spirituality, so the body decays more easily than the soul. When the mortal body dies, its spirit is far from ending. Life belongs to the gods, but the soul belongs to our Lord. When they lose their sustenance in this world, they should naturally return to the spiritual world and the embrace of the spiritual master. I see. Iapetus nodded, indicating that he understood. He could accept this outcome, but the gods may not have objections to it. But that has nothing to do with him. In the final analysis, he is just a messenger. Life and death are really miraculous phenomena, but they also make sense. How can the creations of the gods be compared with their creators? Death is indeed a very good existence, which allows them to have thoughts after, recognizing God and their differences. With some emotion, Iapetus finally said, "I will truthfully convey His Highness Ryan's wishes, but the specific decision must be left to the God King to make the final decision." "Then go ahead," Lyanna said calmly. "The decision of the gods is their business. My lord's intention has been expressed. If anyone still has objections, let him try to come to the spirit world. If he can come in, my lord will take the time to see him. Now you can leave." After saying the last sentence calmly, the wings behind Lyanna's back flapped slightly. In a trance, she disappeared silently in front of Iapetus. Watching Lyanna disappear just as she came, the god of speech waited there for a while, then turned and left. He didn't know whether the gods would accept the return of souls to the underworld after death. After all, death was a new thing to all the gods today. But now that the result had been received, Iapetus simply handed the decision back to the gods. No matter what happened in the end, his errand was over anyway. 3 days later, with the help of wind and space, Iapetus rushed back to the mountain. Just like 6 days ago, the banquet of the gods is still going on, and they are all waiting for the return of the god of speech. In front of the gods, he recounted his experiences on this trip one by one, emphasizing in particular how difficult it was for him and how he skillfully used his divine power to convince the mysterious ancient god. I tried my best to talk, but in the end, His Highness Ryan told me that only when the body and soul come together can life have thoughts. He promised to give souls to mortal things after the gods created them. I am very grateful for his kindness. After listening to what the god of speech said, the gods were moved by his words. They did appreciate the hard work of Iapetus, and even many gods with weak divine power showed respect to him. But in the end, His Highness Ryan told me that non-god life will die. All things are mortal, and matter decays much faster than the soul, so the soul of a living being should return to the spiritual world after death. Death. With all due respect, is this a new coinage? Beside God Queen Rhea, the 3 white oak goddesses who were born from the divine blood of Auranas asked. Like Iapetus before him, the gods present also expressed doubts. Seeing this, the god of speech recounted in detail the information he had received from Lyanna. The gods had mixed reactions to this. When the true gods pay close attention, they can sense the hazy thoughts of the plants. Just like people don't care about ants, the gods in the past never cared about this. Eventually, they all accepted the existence of death. It is very reasonable to use life and death to define the difference between mortal things and gods. It might be a little more troublesome later on because every few thousand years they have to create a batch of beings. The final problem of creating life has been solved. Seeing that this trip is complete, the god of speech is ready to return to his seat. But at this moment, the eldest son of the ancient sea god Pontos suddenly stood up. It was Friendly of the Sea, a sea god who had good relations with many gods. Even in the oceanic pantheon, many gods have a favorable impression of him. His Royal Highness Ryan is willing to give soul to life, and I am very grateful to him. In his usual soothing tone, Nereus looked at Iapetus and said slowly, "But is the ownership of the soul still open to question? I think this is not my idea alone. All credit goes to the original author. If you are the author and wish for this video to be removed or modified, please reach out at fableversodio@gmail.com. Greek Mythology, the Spiritual Dominator. Chapter 48, Creating Life. In the main hall, Nereus was still expressing his opinions. Many gods don't actually care about the ownership of souls, and they don't understand the value of souls now. Just out of the idea that I don't need to pay anything anyway, they choose to sit back and watch. And I have to say that at first glance, Nereus's subsequent views seem quite reasonable. Everyone, the soul is just a creation of authority. It is not a precious thing. To His Highness Ryan, it is just like the sea water is to me, and the rocks are to His Highness Uriah. It is insignificant in itself. As long as you don't create too many, there will be nothing. What a burden. Furthermore, I heard that His Highness Ryan also possesses the priesthood of memory. From this perspective, the soul of creation should also belong to each god himself. Nodding slightly, at least for the latter, many gods showed expressions of approval. The souls of mortal things contain memories, and no god wants his secrets to be known to others. Maybe if they didn't pay attention, they might have said things that they shouldn't know in front of mortal beings. But you can give divinity. Listening to the discussion of the gods, the goddess of justice spoke. It is also a burden for God to immortalize too many creatures, but it is different for a few. As long as those you favor are immortal, there will naturally be no problem of souls returning. Faced with Themis's suggestion, the gods fell silent. It's not that all of them didn't think of it, but the few who thought of it didn't mention it. After all, they weren't the ones who gave their souls. Let's try again. Finally, a god suggested. "It's just some souls. Maybe His Highness Ryan will change his mind." As soon as the suggestion came out, some gods agreed, and many more chose to acquiesce. But this time, Iapetus refused to go again. He had already served as a messenger once and got pretty good results, so the gods did not force him, but sent Zephyros, the god of the west wind. Although the god of wind and the god of stars are brothers and sisters, the blood relationship in the world of Khaos is really not looked down upon by many gods. Compared to their grandfather, they were closer to Khaos, who was in charge of the weather. So even though the star gods had followed Hyperion back to the sky, the four wind gods still chose to stay. After taking over the appointment, Zephyros set off immediately. He transformed into an invisible air current and rushed to the underworld along the cracks in the earth. But this time, after more than half a month, when the god of wind returned, he said angrily that no god cared about him at all.